In the beginning, we see a young girl attempting to escape her village to save her life, as the inhabitants believe she will bring misfortune to the people there, since she was born starless, and, for this reason, they want her dead. The girl manages to hide in the deepest part of the forest, and we see that she has been to this place before. In reality, this is her hiding place, as we can see some kitchen utensils there. Additionally, a small magic bag is hidden in a tree trunk. She gathers all her belongings and stores them in her bag so she can set off for a place where she can remain safe and far from those who wish to harm her. The girl is an unwanted child who was abandoned by her parents. She does not know what it means to be happy, and besides fleeing the village because they want to harm her, her other reason is that she wishes to travel the world alone in search of the happiness she has always longed for. While she tries to practice with the sword, she slips and almost falls down a ravine. She mentions that she would like to have a skill class, one that would serve her to run, flee, or be able to hide, as that way she would not have to go through this entire situation. However, a voice in her head says there is no use in complaining, and later she comes across a trash dump and becomes thrilled at the thought of being able to obtain something good from all of it, something that might be useful to her. The first thing is to obtain another magic bag, and when she tries to pull it out, a large number of weapons fall on her. Fortunately, the little girl is not injured. This dump belonged to some group of warriors, and inside that bag, she finds some clothes and a map, which will be very useful for her journey. In addition to obtaining some magic potions, we can say that these potions are past their expiration date, but she does not mind, as they will be useful just the same. She feels quite happy about everything she ended up finding, although she becomes saddened again upon remembering that she is only an abandoned girl who survives thanks to the trash of others. At that moment, she hears the voices of some men and, observing more closely, she notices that they are bounty hunters who are slime tamers. The voice in her head asks who they are looking for, and here, we realize that the girl is somewhat schizophrenic. This voice in her head is apparently herself, but it is a version of her past life. She hides quickly while listening to the bounty hunters mentioning that the mayor of the village of Latome, which is where the girl fled from, wants her back, dead or alive. And here we discover that the girl's name is Femi, and that the village has also offered a reward for her. Upon hearing this, the little girl becomes frightened and terrified. She runs into the forest, and that is where she spends the night. During the day, she walks in a desperate attempt to distance herself as much as possible from the village. And now, she finds herself at a small lake, where a small group of slimes begins to jump to attack her. She starts to run to get away from them, but in the process, she loses her balance, and this time, yes, she falls into a ravine. Fortunately, the plot is on her side, so her bag got caught on a tree branch, which prevented her from being hurt in the fall. But this did not prevent her from cutting her arm, though thanks to the potions she obtained earlier, she managed to heal it. But she had to use 2 for this, since they were past their expiration date. And I did not know that healing potions had an expiration date. This is quite bizarre, but alright. The voice in her head tells her that the slimes are very ugly and scary, while Femi wonders what kind of slimes her past self knew. A little later, she observes a beautiful river and takes the opportunity to take a bath and relax a bit. She feels that it is quite pleasant because, as she has always lived in hiding, she never had the opportunity to do something like this. But this time, she thinks about doing more similar things, and at that moment, she remembers a divine entity who recommended she travel in disguise. The entity told her to disguise herself as a boy, because if they saw her as a girl, they would consider her an easy prey. It is then that she cuts her hair to look more like a boy and discards all her feminine clothes, seeking something that can help her go unnoticed. And she also decides to change her name. The name her father gave her was Femi, but obviously, she cannot continue using that. Her other self recommends that she use the name Ivy, and Femi asks what it means, and her other self mentions that it is the name of a plant which lives with strength, even if it is trampled upon. This is something that defines her quite well. While mentioning this, she begins to cry and wonders what will become of her in the future. But her other version encourages her to keep moving forward, for there is no use worrying about your future. And now that she has nothing, she will be able to travel light on her journey. While running along a path, she observes some particles emerging from a small bush, and upon looking closer, she is enchanted to see that it is a small slime. This appears to be a very adorable creature, and upon consulting her monster book, she observes that it is an uncommon slime which has no name. It is considered a weaker slime, or a fragile slime. It is so weak that if it is touched, It might even disappear, or a gust of wind could make it fly away quickly. There, Ivy feels that this slime is like her, but she does not wish to call it the weakest. Instead, she chooses to call it simply fragile. At that moment, a gust of wind causes it to fall, and she then realizes that it truly is the weakest slime of all, as it cannot even stand properly on its own. She wonders if she should help it recover, since if she touches it, it might disappear. It is then that she tries to lend a hand, and she succeeds. The book says that due to being very weak, it disappears at the end of a day, and the life expectancy of this creature is extremely short. For this reason, no further studies were conducted on this creature, which is shrouded in several enigmas. While she observes it, a much stronger gust of wind blows, taking it away, and Ivy tries to rescue it. With difficulty, she manages to save it before it falls into the water. Later, she thinks about whether she should truly protect it, and she asks the slime several questions, which only responds with signals, although it is not as if she could understand it in the first place. But despite all this, she thinks about protecting it at least from the wind. If it is true that it is destined to disappear in a day, she will remain with it until then. At night, she mentions that the god of this world is someone fair for creating happy people, and then people like them. She relates that when someone turns 5 years old, a skill is granted. Her father's skill was carpentry and the crafting of 12 stars, while her mother's was a sewing skill of 12 stars and repairing at 1 star. No one knows which skill they will be blessed with, but God is the one who decides the number of stars that will be granted. With these skills and stars, one's future is decided. The detail is that Ivy, upon turning 5, received the Tamer skill, which serves to domesticate monsters, but she ended up receiving no stars. Because she is a starless tamer, she is not capable of domesticating even small animals. When everyone in the village learned the news, their attitude toward her changed completely, including that of her own parents, who had been very good to her. They stopped looking at her and began to despise her, leaving her without food and without a bed. Poor Ivy had a miserable life and has no place in the world, but she mentions that she possesses something others do not. These are the memories of her past life, and apparently, she reincarnated from another world and retains the memories of that previous life. Although they are blurred and do not serve her much purpose, she simply has a voice that whispers a few things in her ear. This voice has been quite useful to her at certain moments, as it says some interesting things. She also had someone who treated her very well, a divine person who gave her many books and taught her many things, in addition to this magic bag, which although it is of a lower quality version, has been very useful for storing her belonging. That is how she managed to survive in this forest. But unfortunately, the deity passed away, and now she has no one. She has no one to watch over her, and the people of the village want her dead, including her parents, even though she has done absolutely nothing wrong. All because she was born starless. She asks if it is really that bad to be a person without stars, and if she truly deserves to be hated for it. Perhaps it is the world that does not want her alive, and this is its way of saying so. The slime is also like her. After all, it is born and disappears on the same day. She says the world is truly unfair, but she is glad to have met it. After all, it is her first and only friend, and now they will be together until the end. Thus the night passes, and upon waking in the following days, she observes that she can no longer find the slime anywhere. She becomes frightened and searches for it desperately, wondering where it is. But then she thinks that if the world truly does not want her, there is nothing she can do. The voice in her head asks if she is sad. Ivy responds that she is a little sad. Yes, although she was already used to being alone, she cannot let herself be defeated by this. Before meeting the small slime, she was already alone, and now she just needs to continue her journey as she was before. She is determined to go to the capital, as recommended by the deity who took her in, and while searching through her things, she picks up the map and notices that the small slime was hidden inside it. She becomes very moved to see that he had not disappeared, and that what the book said about him vanishing in a day was a lie. After that, she heads into the forest. She checks her book for the ritual to domesticate monsters. First, one must give a bit of their mana, and if the monster accepts, it will begin to glow. If it glows, she must give it a name, and if everything works correctly, the taming mark will likely appear. Ivy wonders if she is capable of doing all this, as after all, she is a starless tamer, but she is determined to try. Upon giving a bit of her mana, he begins to glow, and she thinks about what name she should give him. It could be Blue, since he is blue, but looking at the sky, she decides to call him Sora, as it means sky. The taming mark eventually appears on the monster, and Ivy is deeply moved. and Sora suddenly leaps into her hands. The girl says that his name is Sora and her name is Ivy, for she has set aside the name her father gave her, abandoning it along with her village that wants her dead. Now, she has a name to live with strength, even if they look down on her. Sometime later, we see how Ivy has become an expert at hunting local rats. They are huge and look quite appetizing. She takes one to a rock and apologizes for sending it to rodent heaven, but also gives thanks because soon it will be in her belly. She then begins cleaning the creature, but her other self tells her to remove the skin. Ivy tells her that she cannot scream every time she prepares prey, as anyone who saw this girl talking to herself would think she was going crazy. She then removes the rat skin and stores the meat in her bag, and that day, they will likely eat very well. She then checks her map in search of a better route to reach the city the deity recommended. Her first stop will be the village of Ortoa, but while observing the map, a strong wind almost sends Sora flying away, but she manages to catch him and wonders if he will become stronger as he grows. Uncommon slimes remain a mystery, but at that moment, she hears something approaching rapidly and begins to run. Feeling that it is closing in and about to reach her, she climbs a tree to hide, and after a few seconds, she observes a large swarm of giant ants. She mentions that monsters can always appear in the forest, and she must be more alert than ever if she wants to stay alive. She feels that Sora is much larger and heavier, but the wound she got while running begins to hurt. She looks for some potions in her bag, but they are somewhat past their expiration date, so she uses 2 more. Upon seeing the blue potion flasks, Sora becomes excited, and when she finishes healing herself, she notices she is out of blue potions, although she was sure she had taken more. Perhaps some fell along the way. Upon leaving the forest, she reaches a path that leads to a village, but she is surprised to see a wanted poster on a tree with her image, offering a reward of 500 dals. Ivy is surprised to see that they are offering a lot of money for her, but she feels strange that they are paying just to be rid of her. Her inner voice tells her that she is now a fugitive, while Ivy feels that saying that makes her seem ill-intentioned. But she does not need to worry, as she left the name Femi behind, and now she is Ivy. So she tears the poster off the tree, but notices there is another one just ahead. But that one does not please her much, as they depict her as if she were a yakuza. So she tears the poster because she does not have such an ugly face. Later she observes another one and thinks that this one does look like her. A little later she finally arrives at the next village. She tells Sora to hide so as not to draw attention, and upon entering the town, she feels very nervous and tries to hide her face. While she observes that the villagers use everyday magic to perform all sorts of tasks, she notices some children playing and ends up noting that the boy has a running skill while the girl has a searching skill. Their father scolds them for being involved in a scandal, and his wife scolds him because he looks very surly with his intimidation skill. Ivy had never seen the intimidation skill before. While strolling through the village, she observes a bakery and a small butcher shop. She thinks it would be good to sell the meat she obtained, but she is very nervous and starts walking around the shop until the butcher asks what she desires. The nervous Ivy responds that she wishes to sell something, but when she saw the butcher's face, she simply turned to leave. However, he stops her and asks her to show him what she wishes to sell, and Ivy then removes the meats from her magic bag, and the butcher asks if that meat is from the rats found in the surrounding. He knew this because his olfactory skill is 2 stars and he can recognize the smell of the meat. Upon examining it, he notes that it is very fresh and asks if she was the one in charge of hunting. Ivy reports that she wrapped it in vana leaves after cutting it into pieces, and the butcher observes that she did an excellent job. He asks how many she obtained and Ivy shows 4 more bags, and the butcher offers 100 dals as payment. Ivy thinks that is very good, and when he gives her the money, he makes a small joke saying that Ivy has 100,000 dals. Ivy thinks he is being serious, but it was just a joke. He then requests that she hunt more rats, because now everyone looks for larger prey, and no one brings rat meat there. Ivy leaves happy and decides to buy some bread, but ends up getting nervous once again. Upon returning to the bakery, the woman asks what the girl desires, and she is quite curious because she had never seen her before, remembering also that she is passing herself off as a boy. Ivy says that she comes from a neighboring village and that she has a relative. Then she asks how many loaves of bread she can buy with 100 dals. The baker responds that with that, she can take an entire basket, but she decides to take only 2 loaves to spend 20 dals, and jokes just like the butcher, saying that there are 20,000 dals. The baker says that these jokes bring a little joy to the day, And after that, Ivy goes away happy because she will finally be able to eat bread after so much time. At nightfall, she sits on a tree branch and shares the bread with her small slime, Sora. But I think the slime is not very interested in eating bread, though Ivy eats with great pleasure. She asks if the bread does not please him, and he stretches, as if saying no, and Ivy notes that every time he stretches, it is like a negative response, but she still cannot understand very well. On the following day, she goes back to hunting many rats and goes to the village to buy more bread. But on the way, she observes a trash dump and runs there to see if there is anything useful. She observes that there is a basket with many potions past their expiration date, and she is not sure if any will serve her. So she begins to separate the potions and divides them by colors. However, she ends up getting distracted for a moment and Sora climbs onto the blue ones and devours them completely. Ivy is surprised to see that he can process inorganic objects because he also got rid of the bottles, and she hands him a vase to see if he can process it. But Sora refuses to eat that thing. Seeing that this small slime only wants the potions, she gives him the red one, but he does not want to eat it either. Then, she once again gives him a blue one and the slime loses no time in devouring it. And the detail is that this glutton loses control and begins to take all the blue ones that are on the ground. Next, she goes to the butcher to sell the rats she hunted, and he offers 250 dals for having more meat than the previous time. Ivy gives thanks and then goes to buy some more bread, and the baker gives her a gift. This woman here knows very well how to please her customers, so they continue going there. She is a true commercial strategist, very skilled. Ivy gives thanks and then moves away to take a bath in the river. She asks Sora if he would like to bathe, but he retracts completely, sort of refusing to enter there. Ivy thinks later that perhaps the current would sweep him away. A little later, she gives him some blue potions to feed him while she eats some bread. She is very happy to be able to eat bread every day and feels that she could stay in that village because the villagers are all very kind. Although deep down, she feels they might treat her the same way as in her old village if they knew her fearsome secret. But she is grateful to be at peace without fearing the local people, and she would like to stay there. Unfortunately, upon returning to the village, she observes that there are many adventurers in the streets, and some, upon seeing her, address her in an intimidating manner. Seeing them better, Ivy panics, realizing they are the Tamers who are looking for her. They observe that she possesses many magic bags and ask her to show what she carries inside. But Ivy feels apprehensive and runs away. While running, she thinks that at least they did not recognize her as Femi. Passing by the butcher shop, the butcher calls her and asks if she happened to hunt any rodents. But Ivy apologizes because she hunted nothing that day. She ends up becoming quite scared upon seeing that they placed one of the signs inside the butcher shop. The butcher laments because the adventurers bought all the dried meat and he was left without reserves. He asks her to bring more if she hunts more rats, and Ivy accepts but runs away nervously. While the butcher observes that she seems a little frightened upon passing the bakery, the baker asks if she intends to buy more bread, but Ivy responds that she is currently out of money. The baker had prepared the bread that she likes most and tells her that she does not need to worry, searching for a way to give it to her regardless, since if she left the bread there, it would only become hard. Ivy ends up feeling quite embarrassed and remains frightened by the matter of the posters. But when she is about to take the bread, she observes that the baker also possesses a poster. Terrified, she runs away once again. Later, we see her crying at the top of a tree. She liked that village very much, and the people were very good. But now she can no longer stay there. She questions whether she will one day find a place where she can stay and eventually falls asleep at the top of the tree. The next day, she continues her journey, distancing herself as much as possible from the village, since she cannot remain there while the posters are up. As she advances through the forest, she observes a sign that points to two paths. While reviewing the map, she wonders which paths the men took before, since the ideal is to take a totally opposite direction. Sora begins to make signals, but Ivy cannot understand them. Ivy asks if Sora is hungry, although she is as well, and thinks she should have accepted the lady's bread. Since she ran away, she could not even collect water. Furthermore, she has no more potions to give to Sora, so she apologizes to her small slime since she has nothing to offer. Moreover, this gluttonous creature only eats blue potions. While walking, she hears water running and runs to collect some. Seeing the river, she prepares her canteen. But before that, she notices a fruit tree. By chance, they are very tasty, and she asks Sora if he wants any. But he makes another negative signal. Upon approaching, Sora seems very frightened, and being near the tree, we see that in reality, there is a monster there. It had devoured the men who were after her, and it spits out the bodies and advances toward her. Ivy manages to dodge somehow, preventing the branch from piercing her, but she ends up wounded. While running, her vision becomes blurred, and she eventually falls due to blood loss, hunger, and exhaustion. She observes that her wound is in a very complicated state, and she wished she had some potion. But she has none at this moment because that naughty slime ate them all. Then, she observes Sora climbing onto her hand and beginning to devour it, and she remembers that slimes are also monsters, and it seems they also eat people. Vi ends up fainting, and at that moment, she remembers how all her misfortune began. It is then that we see a man working with a piece of wood, and he hears a baby crying and runs to see if his baby had been born. The midwife informs him it is a girl, and his wife, Fufi, asks him to give her a name. We see that this girl is Femi, who at the time of her birth was very beloved by her parents. Years later, we see that in those days, Femi was very happy. She would take lunch to her father and her brother, who ate together. The girl almost chokes on the food, and her father uses magic to give her some water, while her brother scolds her for being gluttonous. But she says it is because she is in a growth phase and must eat a lot to be strong in the future. That excuse is very good. In the evening, her other sister asks to set the table, while her sister hopes she can learn to use magic soon. Femi says that soon they will be able to learn, although her mother responds that she has nothing to worry about because everyone grows at their own pace. Furthermore, she is a good girl and helps them a lot. But Femi says her mother did not say that when she was 4 years old. On the contrary, she was desperate for her to learn magic quickly. Upon serving the food, they observe that it seems very delicious, and best of all, since the sister prepared it, all exhaustion will be removed, as she possesses a therapy skill. After eating, they relax a bit, and Fufi asks her husband how the work is going. He responds that everything is going very well, and that he will likely finish in the same month. His son possesses a 3-star carpenter skill, and his mother a 2-star sewing skill. While she is sewing, she ends up becoming a bit emotional and mentions that because she is sewing the wedding dress for the shoemaker's daughter, she started thinking that one day her daughters will also get married. The sister tells her she wants a very luxurious dress for her wedding, but her father responds that there is still a long way to go for that. At that moment, they mention that Femi is about to turn 5 years old and desires to receive many gifts. Although her brother responds that this is the least important part, since upon turning 5, she will receive something much more interesting. The girl asks what he is referring to, and her father mentions that she will receive a skill, and with it, she will be able to get a job and will never lack food. No one knows which skills she will obtain, nor even the stars, and the problem is that the work to be performed will depend entirely on her skill. Her brother, with 3 stars, has his life guaranteed, unlike Fesselha, who has only 1 star and will end up stagnant, which makes her very angry. Her mother asks what skill she would like to have, and Femi responds that she wishes to be a tamer so she can make friends with dragons and griffins. Her siblings begin to mock her for saying such foolish things, while her father responds that skills are necessary for work. This is a classification that God grants them to be able to live in the world, and it is not just for making friends. At that moment, there is a knock at their door late at night, and upon opening it, they are quite surprised to see that it is the deity Ruba. She apologizes for arriving so late at their home, but wishes to talk about Femi, as she will soon receive her skill. She wanted to wish her good luck and give her blessing. Upon observing her, she has a flashback. When Femi was 2 years old, her mother at the time mentioned that despite her talking a lot for a 2-year-old child, she sometimes said some very strange things that ended up leaving the mother worried. She said things like reincarnation and was surprised by the existence of magic in that world. Ruba mentions that there is no reason to worry, as Femi will be capable of using magic and will also be someone very intelligent. She takes the opportunity to read her future and asks Fufi to look for new candles to perform her work. While she goes to fetch them, Ruba tells Femi to keep silent. She says the girl is capable of remembering her previous life, but mentions for her to keep this secret and not reveal it to anyone, not even her own family. She asks her to promise, and the girl does. Back in the present, Ruba finishes praying for Femi. She says that Femi will certainly receive a very good skill, and Fesselha asks if she can guess what her little sister's skill will be. But she confesses that since her prediction is only 1 star, she cannot do that. The child mentions that one cannot expect much from someone with 1 star, but her father reprimands the child because the village depends greatly on the deity Ruba. since without her predictions, they would be in trouble regarding the harvests. However, upon leaving, Ruba looks back at the house with great concern. Some time later, the moment to receive the skill arrives. Everyone gathers at the church where they make the preparations for the young girl. Upon climbing to the podium, she places her finger in the chalice while her parents observe her with great pride. Upon descending, the priest begins to pray to grant the skill to Femi. From a bubble of water, they observe that her skill is Tamer. With it, she will be able to domesticate monsters. Her parents are very moved upon hearing the news, but upon seeing the number of stars, the priest becomes frightened and the bubble explodes. He declares that her skill is Tamer, but she possesses no stars. Her parents ask the priest to examine her once more, as it might be a mistake, but he tells the parents to stop or he will punish them for blasphemy. Upon leaving, he mentions that the girl was someone abandoned by God. Upon returning to their home, her father is very angry and disappointed as well, since they have 2 stars and their children do too. So Femi is the only one who has none, and that is very strange. Femi tries to calm him, but her father, blinded by rage, tells her to shut up. He tells her that God has abandoned her and he does not understand why he has to keep her in his house. It is impossible for him to accept something like that. And at that, he destroys the gift he had given previously and questions if Femi is truly his daughter. It is quite something for him to question that, considering the girl is the spitting image of him, even down to the green hair, yet he still wondered. Anyway, his wife was quite shocked to hear them say this. Femi tries to console her mother, but she ends up being stopped by her brother, who looks at her with hatred and contempt, and they all order her to leave the house. The poor girl goes away running. Everyone in the village begins to look at her with contempt, and the mayor encourages everyone in the village to despise her even more. The youth threw stones at her and shouted for her to leave the village. The poor girl was a victim of constant abuse and mistreatment by everyone. Her life changed completely into a life full of pain and mistreatment. She could no longer return home, and the voice in her head asks if this is a witch hunt. But Femi responds that she is not a witch. At that moment, it begins to rain and she walks on, famished. She even ate a fruit, but it had a very bad taste. While she was taking refuge from the rain in a cave, she tries to use magic to create a campfire, but she feels very hungry and is so weak that she ends up fainting. However, she wakes up beside the deity Ruba, who asks if she is alright. She says the girl seems to have less magic power than most people, and using it all could cost her life. She reveals that she had seen that the girl would suffer, but had not seen the reason why. She gives her some food so she can recover her strength, and shortly after that, she tells her that she must acquire knowledge to be able to live without problems, even if she has little magic power. Additionally, she also offers magic bags so she can store her things, and they are very useful because they reduce the weight of the items they contain. She also gives her a book in which she will find everything possible for her to survive her solitary life, as one day she must set out to see the world on her journey. In this way, she will be able to expand her horizon. She recommends that she go to the city of Earth, the city located next to the kingdom's capital. Although if she finds another place where she can live peacefully, it will not be necessary for her to go there. But of course, she must find someone trustworthy, a person she can trust and tell everything to, including that she is starless, as in the end, everything that is hidden eventually comes to light. At that moment, she will need allies to fight by her side. Some time passed, and Femi began to take care of herself more and more on her own. Secrets are the catalysts for the loss of trust. Femi asks her why she is so kind to her despite her having no stars, and if by chance she does not hate her. But Ruba asks why she should hate her, and Femi says that everyone else hates her for being starless. Ruba reveals that a long time ago, people had no skills or stars, and they lived normally and were also happy. The fact of not having a skill is not a bad thing in itself. Femi asks why it is considered bad now, and the elderly woman responds that it is a very good question, but one that has no answer. A while later, she goes to a trash dump in search of more things for her survival, and she even manages to get a blue potion, along with some pieces of wood. This time she had a very good haul, as she managed to capture a rodent to eat by using her traps, which are working very well, by the way. While she is eating, she thinks that it has been a long time since she saw the old lady. At that moment, the voice in her head alerts her to someone's presence. She quickly puts out the campfire and runs to hide. She observes that some villagers are wandering around and wonders what they are doing in that place. Perhaps something happened in the village, and she runs there to find out what occurred. There, she hears some women talking about Ruba's death, saying she had passed away due to a cold. The news surprises the little girl, and at that moment, her father meets with the mayor to inform him that Femi has disappeared. They went to look for her in her hiding place, but she was no longer there. The mayor thinks she realized all the plans and responds that he already knows what to do, calling him by the name Ogudo, the cursed one. Devastated by her father, she responds that those starless ones do not belong in the world, and he will be delighted to send his daughter back to God. She is shocked to hear her own father speak like that. She feels her world is completely collapsing and imagines her family wishing she had never been born. Meanwhile, the mayor encourages the villagers to search for Femi and mentions that because of her, Ruba was cursed. She did not want to listen to his warnings and continued caring for the girl, and for that reason, she was cursed by the gods and ended up passing away upon losing her blessing. He orders the girl to be captured, for a catastrophe like this happened because she is alive, and they cannot let her live for another second. Upon hearing this, Femi runs away while the villagers search for her everywhere. She did nothing wrong to deserve that, and the deity did not deserve to die either. She is not guilty of anything. At that moment, she feels her mother grab her and her father strike her on the head, but she quickly awakens from the dream of everything this poor girl lived through. Sora is still on her arm, and she thinks he is devouring her, though she does not give it much importance because, after all, no one wants her. However, Sora wakes her up, and Ivy notices that her arm is healed. The wound before was quite bad, but Sora took it upon himself to heal her. And Ivy, thinking the poor Sora was devouring her, left nothing for Sora. Then he says a few words. Well, he tries. Anyway, Ivy is overjoyed because she will finally be able to speak with someone, so she thanks him for saving her life. It may be that no one wants her in that world, but it does not matter, since she has Sora by her side, and now she must simply keep striving. On the following day, Ivy wakes up thanks to Sora, who acts like an alarm clock. Her past self mentions that he truly resembles one, while Ivy wonders what an alarm clock is. Shortly after, she prepares breakfast and gives some blue potions to Sora while she eats some fruit. Sora is now moving much more, in addition to being a bit chubby, since this slime used to be very delicate before, but he is this way now because he is constantly ingesting blue potions. Ivy mentions that she needs to buy more dried meat when she reaches the village of Ladom. Luckily, she obtained these fruits, since there was not much meat left for her, so she needs to make an effort to hunt many more rats there on the prairie. However, her inner voice mentions that it would be cheaper to cook dried meat than to hunt. Although Ivy mentions that this is not ideal while in the forest, if she were to cook the meat, it would attract the attention of monsters. Even though it costs money, it is much safer to buy dried meat. Sora eats all the potions, and Ivy warns that those were all that remained, although Sora complains because he was still hungry. Later, they find another trash dump, and she manages to get new clothes, although Sora reprimands her, as food is his maximum priority. He does not want to know about anything else, only his potions. Fortunately, they find a box full of potions, although some are much older and perhaps do not even work. But Sora does not care. He eats them just the same. Ivy offers another potion, but while he is eating, he takes a red one and eats it too, mentioning that red potions are used to cure illnesses, which is good, as they did not eat them before. It is then that she tries to give a green one to him, but he did not like it much and refuses. She even tries with the purple one, but he also does not accept it. The voice in her head proposes combining the potions, and Sora accepts, but upon trying again with the purple color, he refuses to eat it, proving that although the color is similar, this small slime is picky and will not eat just anything. A bit later, she continues on her path toward the village of Ladom. Ivy is happy, as she did not expect the trip to be so fun, and at one point, she thought she would have to travel alone and live alone forever. Although the voice in her head tells her she is not alone, since she herself is accompanying her. At that moment, she observes a fruit. She eats it and offers another to Sora, but the creature continues to refuse to eat anything that is not potions. Ivy then gathers some fruit for the rest of the trip, and at sunset, she prepares for dinner. But while she is preparing to eat, Sora has already devoured everything. Ivy hands him about 3 more, but this naughty slime devours them all at once and keeps asking for more. At this rate, he will eat them all. Her inner voice mentions that people feel hungry when they do not sleep. So Ivy takes advantage of the hours and prepares to tell him a tale they used to tell her when she was little. At night, she tells him that long ago the world was plunged into a war. A king gathered the most capable mages to predict how the war would end. But in doing so, All of them could only see the end of the world. The mages spoke among themselves and cast a very powerful spell to protect the world. A spell that no one else knows and no one else is capable of using. It can only be cast by the child coming from another world, a spell that no longer exists and no one remembers. But while she tells this story, she ends up falling asleep. The next day, her slime alarm clock wakes her up, and her inner voice mentions that she fell asleep in the middle of the story. Ivy mentions that she never managed to finish the full story because she always sleeps in the middle. But upon observing the environment more closely, she notices that the small slime had devoured all of her potions. A bit later, she goes to see what she captured with her trap. But upon approaching, she is startled, as she had captured a snake-type monster. Perhaps she can sell it, so she removes a bag from her backpack and manages to capture the snake with it. After that, while following the main path, she smells a strange scent and wonders if there is some kind of monster, although she cannot perceive its presence. Delving even deeper into the forest, she is terrified to see a destroyed carriage and a dead horse. She orders Sora to hide in case there are bandits. Upon inspecting the scene more closely, she is horrified to see several mangled corpses, and she runs desperately back to the main road and observes that she is already very close to the village of Ladom. Upon arrival, she goes to the town hall to report the carriage and the corpses. But upon entering the guild and seeing the adventurers, she becomes very nervous. The receptionist asks what she has in her bag, and Ivy says it is a snake that fell into her rat trap. A bald adventurer recommends she sell it, and Ivy thanks him for the advice, but informs them that on the way to the guild she found a pair of corpses. Upon hearing this, everyone in the guild pays attention to her, and the receptionist asks her to step closer to provide all the details. Ivy says she found a burned carriage and people murdered by a monster, and at that moment, an adventurer who appears to be the mayor, or guild master, tells her that it is not that he doubts her, but asks if she is certain they were not bandits. Ivy responds that the bodies were mangled, and that they also killed the horse. If they were bandits, they would not have killed the horse. The master then orders the rest of the adventurers to set out in search of information, as they must find the location of the monsters, and then they will make a formal request for having defeated the responsible creatures. Everyone prepares to leave, and before withdrawing, the master thanks her for the information and notes that after resolving the incident, they will remunerate her. Ivy asks why they will pay, and the receptionist informs her that it is for the information she provided. Whoever reports monsters or deceased persons in the village shall receive a reward, and the ideal is to discover the monster's hiding place to avoid more victims. She hands over a document with which she can receive her reward after they verify that her information is true. After that, Ivy goes to the shop to sell the snake. The shopkeeper offers 3 goldels for the snake, which is a female, and they are very rare to obtain. Ivy is quite surprised, as 10 copper plates of 100 dowels are equivalent to 1 goldel, so 3 goldels would be equivalent to roughly 30 rats from that prairie. She did not expect these snakes to be so expensive, but the shopkeeper, seeing that she is thinking a lot, asks if that is perhaps not enough. Ivy says it is fine and receives the 3 goldels, and the shopkeeper says that if she gets more snakes, he is willing to buy them. Upon leaving the shop, she is very happy, because with this, she will be able to buy plenty of dried meat for the rest of her journey. But now it is time to look for food for her gluttonous slime. She heads to a village trash dump, and upon arriving there, she observes that there are many magic bags. She organizes all the ones she wants to take, or at least the ones that work. But while she is thinking about how to do this, Sora is already having a field day devouring the potions in his path. Her inner voice proposes to Ivy to put one bag inside the other so she can carry them all. Doing this with the first one works, but on the second attempt, it does not. This lasts almost the entire afternoon in search of the perfect arrangement, until finally, she manages to fit all 21 backpacks. She apologizes to Sora for taking so long and says that now it is time to look for potions, but she did not know that he had already devoured almost all of them. Upon returning, she observes that there are many adventurers in the streets, and she feels very fearful and covers herself as she advances carefully. The guild master approaches her and warns that the cause of the slaughter is a group of ogres and an ogre king. Some experienced adventurers will already take care of them. However, he recommends that they do not leave the village until all have been eradicated. Since all this correct information was provided by Ivy, she can now go seek her payment. At the guild, the receptionist thanks her for the information, as thanks to it, they will avoid another disaster. She requests the document given previously, but Ivy does not remember which backpack she left it in and ends up making a mess at the guild reception. Upon finding the paper, she hands it to the receptionist, who gives her 5 goldals for the corpses, which surprises Ivy greatly since 5 goldals would be equivalent to 50 rats. But then the receptionist hands her 2 more goldals for the information about the monsters, and she is extremely impacted, as these coins are equivalent to 200 rats. According to her calculations, she would have roughly 250 rats in her pocket, plus the snake she sold, totaling about 280. The receptionist warns that this is a lot of money, and it is better that she does not lose it. Ivy, with her nerves on edge, puts the money away. But as she tries to leave, the receptionist stops her and reminds her that she has to pick up that pile of backpacks she left on the floor. As she walks down the street, she thinks everyone wants to take her money because they are watching her. But in truth, they are looking at her because this young girl is walking with a mountain of magic backpacks on her back. At night, several adventurers are camping in the town's interior due to the order issued by the mayor. They must protect themselves until all the ogres are eliminated. Near the camp, Ivy is there eating some fruit and giving a potion to Sora, who is hidden in her backpack. As the village surroundings remain dangerous, she will also sleep in the camp, staying there until the ogre hunt ends. She observes the village and sees that it is quite large, telling Sora that this adventure with him is being very fun. Then, she stretches a bit and lies down to sleep. Some time later, Ivy continues her journey, hunting in the process. However, many of her traps end up broken, and she does not know which animal is causing this. If it continues like this, she will not be able to sell enough meat. Her other self reminds her of the money she already has, but Ivy is a clever girl, so she wants to save that money as much as possible to ensure her journey remains smooth. At that moment, Sora detects a presence and runs after it. Ivy pursues him, and upon approaching the location, she smells a strong scent of blood. As she nears, she is surprised to see a massive giant cat. She detects the magic power coming from the monster, and upon reviewing her book, she notes that it is a Wanda Dara. These are very violent and uncommon monsters, but this one is in a terrible state. She asks if he is afraid and confesses that she also felt fear when she was on the verge of death. She does not think of leaving him alone. At the very least, she wants to keep him company. Sora, seeing that she wants to help the Wanda Dara, expands over him and uses his power to heal him completely. After a while, he leaves him as good as new. Upon finishing, the Wanda Dara stands up and approaches Ivy. She gets startled, thinking he wants to hurt her, but the cat only offers her some affection. According to the book, he is a violent animal that can only be defeated by a group of 5 superior adventurers, but he ended up being much more affectionate than he appears. He is very gentle and will now accompany her journey. While she thinks of him as a new friend, she wishes she had more magic power to be able to tame him. However, she decides to give him a name. Looking at the sky, she names him Seal, as that means sky in some other language, or at least those are the memories she has from her other self. The cat ends up liking it very much, and she introduces herself and also introduces Sora. Upon sensing the presence of some people, she orders Sora to hide in her bag. She tells Seal that he does not fit, and it is better that they do not see him. Seal obeys her and enters the forest once more. Upon reaching the main road, she observes that Ladome is a very large city, and the guard at the gate causes her a bit of fear. An individual passes by her and says it is better for her not to cause trouble, and Ivy feels quite frightened. Sora, seeing her, feels a bit uncomfortable. At the gate, the guard stops the man and asks why he is going to the tower. The nervous traveler responds that it is just a visit, but when asked who he is visiting, he does not know how to answer. He ends up making up a random name, and the guard responds that he knows no one by that name. Seeing that the man is inventing another name, the guard throws him against the wall and cuts his bag to see what he is carrying. Some wine bottles fall from the bag. This individual is a smuggler. The guard calls his colleague to put him in a cell. Although the colleague responds that while he is aware the man is a criminal, he should treat him a little better. Ivy perceives that this guy is a bad person, but she had not even noticed it herself. However, Sora had already noted it. She wonders whether she should enter or not. Noticing that the guard is watching her, she decides to do so, for if she fled at that moment, they would suspect her. She walks and tries to go unnoticed, but the guard stops her and asks where she comes from. Ivy is quite intimidated upon seeing him, but at that moment, an insect lands on his shoulder. She asks what is happening, and Ivy warns him that there is an insect. He gets startled and tries to remove it, thanking her for the warning. Ivy tries to take advantage of the opportunity to enter the village, but once more the guard stops her and asks where she comes from. The frightened Ivy responds that she is coming from Latom, but is traveling alone. The guard is surprised because it is a very long journey, but he understands since Latom is not in its best era. He tells her it must not be easy, but while she is in Latom, she will be safe. He tells her to become an adventurer to have something to eat, and Ivy thanks him. But while entering the village, she wonders what happened back in her old village. As she walks through the city, she is surprised to see that it is very large. She sets out in search of a butcher shop and asks the butcher if she would buy the meat she hunted. The butcher says that as long as it is fresh, she will buy it. She also takes the opportunity to warn her to be careful, as there are monsters called Nanakins in the forest. If they attack, they will cause significant damage. Ivy gives thanks and buys some fresh meat. Upon leaving, she thinks that those Nanakins are the reason her traps are constantly being damaged. Her other self then tells her not to sleep in the forest and suggests it is better to stay within the village. Ivy thinks it would be a good idea to go to the Adventurers Square. When she arrives, she observes another guard who also causes her a bit of fear. He watches her with great seriousness and asks if she is going to sleep there alone. Ivy responds that she is, and he hands her a permit. He recommends that she stay in a specific area. Ivy asks if she must pay for the permit, but he explains it is only to maintain control and avoid problems. He warns her not to lose it, as she will not be able to enter without it. Inside, she lays down her blanket and lies down to relax a bit. She notices many adventurers with large tents and is glad to be far from them. Looking closer, she notes many small tents around her, perhaps belonging to novices. She mentions that if she had a tent, she would not have to worry about bad weather and could have Sora with her instead of always having him hidden. She counts the money she was given before and realizes she could buy a second-hand tent with it. While at the commercial area looking for a tent, the guard from before suddenly appears and speaks to her, startling her. His name is Ogudo, and the other is called Verivra. Verivra tells Ogudo that he cannot go around scaring small children. Ogudo apologizes and asks if she intends to buy a tent. Ivy responds that she does, as she does not have one. The guard asks if she was expelled from her old village, and Verivra remarks that if they expelled her, the previous village must be doing very poorly indeed. They ask her name, and Ivy introduces herself. Ogudo then says that as compensation, he will take her to a shop where she can get a good price. But he pulls her along in an absurd manner. Verivra recommends that he be more careful with someone smaller than him. Ogudo apologizes, and Verivra confesses that he is not a bad person. But when he has an idea, he forgets everything else. Ivy tells them they do not need to worry, and shortly after, they go to the shop. There, Ogudo tells the old shopkeeper that this girl comes from a very distant village. The elder is surprised and says they must be going through hardships in the village of Latom. He asks what she wants, but when Ivy is about to answer, Ogudo acts as the intermediary and says she is looking for a tent. The elder feels a bit uncomfortable because the customer is somewhat troublesome. Ogudo tells him not to be so cruel to the child, but in reality, the old man was talking about Ogudo himself. At that moment, Ivy asks how much a tent costs, and the elder mentions that it depends on each one. He asks what her budget is, and Ivy asks if 5 goldals would be alright. The old man is surprised, and Ivy says that if it is not enough, she still has 2 more goldals, though she prefers to save the money for her journey. Everyone is surprised to discover she has so much money with her. They wonder about its origin, and Ivy reports that they gave her a lot of money at the guild after she reported some monsters. She was very lucky, as if they paid her so much. The monsters must have been very dangerous. With the 5 goldals, she can buy a good tent, and the elder hands her a late model light and resistant. He mentions it belonged to an adventurer who abandoned the profession when he got a girlfriend. Ogudo mentions that guy was useless and calls him a normie. The elder mentions that he resold it shortly after buying it, and it is quite resistant because he modified it himself. He bought it for 5 goldals, but will sell it for the same price as a gesture of goodwill. Ivy hands over the money, and the old man gives her a pen to put her mark on it. That way, they will know the tent is her property, and she should do it in a place where only she knows. It can be her name or a symbol. They help her place her mark, and she ends up writing a strange symbol. It might be memories from her past life. This symbol ends up signifying Sora, which she can somehow read. As a gift, the elder gives her a small magic bag so she can store her money and retrieve it without anyone seeing. Upon leaving the shop, Ivy thanks them for their help. but the individual with glasses tells Oguto that they must continue their patrol, and both say their goodbyes. Ivy then sets up her tent. Upon finishing and entering, she notes that it is very spacious and tells Sora that he can now live there, as it is his home. He no longer needs to worry about the rain or bad weather. Thanks to the money given to her at the guild, she was able to buy it, and in that place, they were very kind to her. She does not know if she deserves all this, but the best thing now is to celebrate. She sets out in search of a place to give potions to Sora. At that moment, a group of adventurers approaches her and accuses her of being a thief, saying that the tent belongs to their friend and that they want her to return it. Ivy asks if by chance it is that useless person, but they have no idea who she is talking about and tell her to hand it over. Ivy refuses because she bought it with her own money, and those men respond that someone like her cannot have a tent like that. They grab her and observe that she carries a magic bag, accusing her of having stolen other things as well. At that moment, they notice Sora, who is quite angry. They had never witnessed anything of the kind. Ivy tries to run, but they hold her by her clothes and say they will kill her. Fortunately, at that moment, the square guard arrives and asks about all the commotion. He warns that if they cause trouble, they will be fined and expelled, but they claim she stole their friend's tent and that they are the victims. The guard asks if they have proof, but they respond that she is just a dirty little girl who cannot afford a tent like that. The guard approaches and removes their hands from Ivy. He says the tent belongs to her, but the people continue to say she stole it. The guard explains it is a second-hand item from Led's shop, but they tell him not to speak nonsense. The guard then informs them that the ones who took the girl to the shop were Captain Oguto and Vice Captain Barevra. Upon hearing this, everyone becomes apprehensive. He asks again if the girl truly stole the tent. Now they say they might have been mistaken, but the guard says they will have to go with him to answer some more questions. The cowards respond that it was just a misunderstanding, but the guard has many questions to ask. They all flee, but the guard alerts the other soldiers. They manage to capture 2 of them while the other 2 escape, pursued by the rest of the guards. He asks Ivy if she is alright and apologizes for frightening her. She asks him how he knew the tent was hers, and he confesses that Captain Oguto went to see him personally and asked him to check if the girl could set up the tent on her own. He apologizes to her and, as compensation, hands her a very good brand of blue potion. Ivy is surprised and says it is very beautiful. The official says goodbye and tells her she can call him whenever she needs help. Ivy observes that he is a very good person. At night, to celebrate, she gives many potions to Sora so they can enjoy a banquet. He can eat as much as he wants, but this demanding little ball wishes to eat only the high-quality blue potion that was given to her. Ivy refuses to give him that potion. The next day, Ivy leaves her tent very happy with the good weather. She informs the gate guard that she intends to hunt, and he recommends she be very careful. However, while walking toward the outskirts of the city, she notices that all the guards she encounters on her path greet her as if they had known her for a long time. Nervous, she responds with a good morning and wonders why everyone knows her. In the forest, she observes that the Nanakins have once again broken her traps. If it continues like this, she will be unable to hunt or sell anything. Fortunately, Seal appears with a large number of rabbits and hands them to Ivy. She is moved by his great gift. She has 9 rabbits and wonders how he managed to hunt them since he has no injuries, but she sets that aside and goes to prepare them, because fresh meat is always best. Upon finishing packing them, Sora wakes up to go sell the meat before it spoils. While observing Seal, her other self asks if Seal is truly a Wanda Dada. He is identical to the image in the book, but is not violent at all. She gives thanks for the meat he obtained, and Seal enters the forest again. Returning to the city, she notes that Sora is much better than when she first met him. Before, it seemed he might disappear at any moment, and now he is much more energetic, though she sees he remains a bit careless. Upon returning to the village, she delivers the meat to the butcher, who is surprised because she did not damage the organs. She asks how she managed to do that, because when they resist, normally they lose their flavor. However, yours are excellent. Ivy doesn't know how to respond, and the elderly lady thinks it must be her professional secret. If she only knew it was a giant cat who did the hunting. I don't even know what she'd say. Since they are in perfect condition, she pays $95 per piece, totaling $855 for the 9 rabbits. She asks Ivy to bring more if she goes hunting again, and Ivy is very grateful to Seal, because if it weren't for him, she wouldn't have caught anything. On the way to the camp, the guards meet her once more and greet her again. Ivy is quite embarrassed, and Varivara apologizes if they startled her. Though she responds that it's no problem. After saying goodbye, she thinks that while she appreciates the intention, she doesn't like drawing much attention. Still, she notices they are very attentive toward her, and that place isn't bad at all. She spots a fruit stall and runs over when she sees they are selling Zaros, though to me, it looks just like a mango. It's identical. She mentions it's quite expensive, and the vendor says it cost a lot to get them because they are from Latom and only grow there. He reveals that they had a terrible harvest that year and asks if she belongs to that village. Ivy responds yes, that she came from Latom, and the vendor asks about her parents. She says she is traveling alone, and the vendor asks if it's because of the idiot mayor. Ivy is curious since she doesn't know the news, so she asks what is happening there. The vendor reveals that everything started since the death of the divine Ruba. She was the one who held things together in Latom, as it was very difficult to know when to harvest the fruits. If they mistimed the harvest, they became inedible, and only she knew when they should be picked. The village lived off the harvest of that fruit, which is why the people supported Ruba. But the idiot mayor didn't like depending on an elderly woman and refused to give her medicine when she fell ill, which ultimately caused her death. As if that weren't enough, they tried to blame a little girl for everything. Ivy remembers when they turned the villagers against her and understands that Ruba's death was the mayor's fault. By losing the deity, they suddenly couldn't harvest the fruits anymore. And now Latom is in a very delicate situation. The mayor declared it was necessary to reduce the number of mouths to feed. Many villagers opposed leaving, while others he expelled himself. It was complete madness. He asks why she fled, and Ivy tells him her parents supported the mayor, which caused some problems. The vendor feels sorry for her and ends up offering her a mango, saying it's too ripe to be sold, so she can have it. Now back in her tent, she wonders what happened to her family, though now they are just people in a distant place. She was abandoned and feels sad, but at least now she is doing well thanks to Sora and Seal. She has a home besides Varivara and all the others who are very kind to her, plus her other tough personality too. Moreover, although she is small, she also has a house. She bites into the mango and remembers the flavor of her childhood, the same flavor Ruba protected. She recalls the old woman's recommendation about going to the capital and looking for people she can trust. The next day, she heads out to hunt once more, greeting all the guards with more enthusiasm. Once in the forest, she sets some traps and hopes that this time the creatures won't destroy them. After that, she goes to the trash dump in search of some potions, but on the way, she senses someone's presence and tells Sora to hide. The scoundrels from before come out of their hiding place, happy to have found her. They plan to make her pay for what she made them go through at the camp. Ivy tells them she did nothing, but they order her to shut up, saying it was her fault their companions were caught. One remembers she had a very strange slime and orders her to hand it over in exchange for her life. Ivy refuses because he is her friend, and as she refuses, they prepare to attack her. Ivy starts to run, and one of them falls into her traps. His companion calls him pathetic, and he, furious, goes after her intending to finish her off. His companion catches up to her easily, and the other grabs her from behind, ordering her to hand over the slime. Ivy kicks him and asks him to let her go. At that moment, the white-haired scoundrel is terrified to see Seal standing behind her. They panic at the sight of a Wandadara. They release Ivy, and Seal lets out a howl that makes the woman faint. The other runs for his life, but Seal quickly catches up and finishes him with a roar. Afterward, he drags the two of them back, and Ivy thanks Seal for saving her. She also asks if Sora is alright, but she is doing wonderfully well, and Ivy wonders if Seal did the same to hunt the rabbits. At that moment, they sense more people approaching, and Seal runs off to hide. Ogudo and Varivara arrive at the scene and are surprised to see Ivy. They ask if she is alright. Varivara mentions they were patrolling when they heard roars and screams and hurried over. Ivy then shows them the criminals, and they are shocked to see that gang. Afterward, Ogudo mentions to Ivy that the 4 adventurers who had bothered her were actually wanted criminals. Usually, they would pick fights with young adventurers to steal their belongings. They had been reported to the guild, but they couldn't be captured because they possess a 3-star running skill. Worse still, those detained that day had also committed several murders. The killers will become slaves for life, while the other 2 will be slaves for a long time but will one day be released. She can rest easy now, as she won't see them again anytime soon. Since she helped capture them, she will receive a reward. Normally it's 5,000 dals per criminal, but since 2 are murderers, that's 2 goldals, and the guild was offering 1 radal for each of the other 2. Therefore, they will hand over a total of 2 radels and 2 goldels to her. Little Ivy, wherever she goes, is starting to have a great fortune in her hands, and her calculations based on the rat system are starting to get very complicated. I think it's better if she uses another technique to count. Ogudo asks if she has a bank account and recommends she open one since she's carrying so much money around. He takes her to the commercial guild to open an account and serves as her guarantor. Once at the bank, the receptionist requests a drop of her blood for the registry. Ivy uses the needle, and with that, all her data appears on a magic screen. Ogudo observes that her name is Ivy, that she is 8 years and 11 months old, and is surprised because she is about to turn 9. He thought she was 6 or 7. He takes her to the room to make the deposit. Ivy gives him the money, they give her the card, and upon leaving the bank, Ogudo explains that with this paper, she will be able to withdraw money at any commercial guild. Her other voice mentions that this is a savings book. But as she stands there thinking, Ogudo thinks something happened to her. Reacting, the girl responds that it's nothing and thanks him for all his help. At that moment, Verivera appears irritated and tells the captain he's been looking for him for a long time, asking that next time he be told where he is so he doesn't get lost. Ogudo apologizes. As they walk, he asks Ivy if she has ever eaten the typical dish of the region. Ivy has no idea what it is, and Ogudo invites her to eat nanachan skewers. Verivera recommends she accept the offer, as nanachans are a very exquisite dish. It's then that Ogudo pats her head, and she wonders when the last time was that she received any kind of affection. Verivera notices she is very pensive and asks what's going on, but Ivy responds that she's just hungry. In that case, Ogudo takes her by the hand, this time more carefully, and leads her to a restaurant. The cook asks if this is his secret daughter, and he jokes that she is. Shortly after they sit down, she orders 2 beers and a non-berry juice. Meanwhile, Ivy notices that the skewers are very large, and Ogudo, as usual, overdoes it, ordering about 10 nanachan skewers for each of them. Ivy responds that it's too much and she won't be able to eat it all, but he insists, saying they are very tasty. Although Verivera mentions it's not just about the flavor, clearly he isn't considering Ivy's size. Then the food is served, and upon tasting it, Ivy is delighted with the flavor. Verivera says the food is so good because the cook is incredible. She could even work in the royal capital, as her culinary skill is 4 stars, and you don't see many 4-star skills around. Those guys from before, for example, had 3 stars, and it was already very difficult to capture them. He says he wishes there were some guards with a running skill, as most have combat skills, and he asks Ivy what skill she has, since depending on which one it is, she might be able to join the guard in the future. But she nervously responds that she is a Tamer, and they respond that it is a very good skill. But when they ask about the number of stars, they notice she becomes very uncomfortable, and they look at each other. They tell Ivy that it's okay, because there are many unscrupulous individuals with many stars who end up doing evil, like the criminals they caught that day. And the opposite also appears, people with only 1 star who are incredibly kind and decent individuals. So, he tells her she shouldn't worry and should feel proud of herself. Ivy feels a little better, and after a while, they say their goodbyes. She reflects on the fact that she doesn't even possess a single star. The next day, she decides to depart and continue her journey, as she promised the deity she would go to the city next to the capital. The soldiers are a bit sad about her departure, and Ogudo tells her she can use his name if anything happens. If she says she's a friend of Ogudo, she'll have a clear path. Ivy thanks them for all their hospitality and help, and Ogudo shouts that she has to come back someday because they'll be waiting for her. Ivy confirms she will return to see them. It's then revealed that these two already know the truth about Ivy. Both the Commercial Guild and the Adventurers Guild rated the village of Ladom as a 1-star settlement. They checked all the lists, and there is no one by the name of Ivy. Furthermore, most families left together, but there was one girl, only 8 years old, who fled alone. Ogudo mentions that it seems she has her secrets and isn't just hiding her gender, it's the reason she fled. Ogudo feels like she doesn't trust him, but Verivera responds that this only shows how much everything that happened in Ladom hurt her. However, he is certain that one day she will tell them the whole truth. After traveling for some time, we see Ivy running after Sora, who isn't obeying her. Later, she rests for a bit and mentions that lately, she has had much more energy. Her other self mentions that the slime seems to have changed after healing Seal. It's as if he evolves after consuming injuries. Ivy wonders what evolve means, though she doesn't dwell on it. She just knows Sora loves blue potions. At that moment, Sora wanders off, and following him, She observes that Nanakins are burying Yamaben all over that area. Ivy imagines that Nanakins must be huge and panics just thinking about it. Suddenly, she hears a noise coming from some bushes and feels very afraid, thinking it might be a giant Nanakin. Fortunately, it was just Seal, who was always there watching over her. Ivy jumps on him and says he almost scared her, while Sora complains because he also wants some affection. Ivy happily grants his wish, and at night, they prepare some rabbit meat that Seal hunted. Ivy shouts upon tasting its delicious flavor and thanks Seal for saving her dinner, mentioning they must wake up early the next day to check the rat traps. But as she eats, a mysterious figure watches from afar. The next day, she continues her path, hoping to have captured many rats. Unfortunately, checking the traps, she sees she hasn't had much luck. But luckily she still has some meat from dinner and decides to eat it for breakfast. Then she notices that presence again. It's very strange and frightening. She grabs Sora and starts running in fear, as that unpleasant presence gets closer and closer. Ivy ends up at a cliff, and turning around, she sees the presence is human. She screams for him not to approach, and looking up, she sees Seal approaching too. He is very irritated and lets out a powerful roar, making the presence disappear. A little later, she is riding on Seal as they advance through a mountainous zone. She thanks him because traveling is much more comfortable now. However, she wonders what that thing was. It gave her a very unpleasant feeling. She notices Seal is very alert, and they see an ogre climbing a mountain. Seal lowers his tail and prepares as the ogre jumps to attack them. But Seal leaps first to defend Ivy and ends up falling off the cliff with the ogre. Ivy worries and prays that he is okay. Looking up, she panics upon seeing 4 ogres descending the mountain. She runs desperately and reaches a dead forest with many straw dolls hanging. She wonders what those things are, but seeing the ogres chasing her, she keeps running. She ends up stepping into a trap and gets stuck as the ogres approach to attack. At that moment, they are attacked by a fireball. An adventurer with the power of flames enters the scene and incinerates all the ogres, mentioning that this is the powerful flaming attack of Ratlow. However, he becomes worried upon seeing a child stuck in the traps, and worse, she is getting burned by his flames. He asks what on earth she is doing there, and crying, she responds that she doesn't know. The other adventurer uses his arrows and shouts for her to be more careful, while shooting the trap to release Ivy. Hatler lets go to catch her and asks what a child is doing there. But he quickly dodges an attack from another ogre and they fall. Some huge slimes appear, controlled by Mara. She is another adventurer from Hatler's group. She orders her slimes to return to the bag, while they observe that 2 other members easily defeated the ogres. They reprimand Hatler for being careless, and Eve warns that there is one more ogre behind him. But the adventurer with a bow takes care of it. He mentions that the trap is now useless because of Hatler's crazy flames. Hatler responds that at least they defeated them without any problems, and Eve is surprised to see how strong they are. Shortly after, they release her and explain they are members of the punitive unit. There are many ogres and other monsters in that area, and their unit is responsible for finishing them all off. The trap was intended for the ogres, although Hatler ended up incinerating everything in the end. Thus, they had set that trap completely in vain, and Eve apologizes for not noticing. One of them asks Eve if she is alright. She says she is and tries to act like a strong person, thanking them for their help. They say they are a group of adventurers called Fire Sword. They introduce themselves. The archer is named Sifa, the white-haired one is Caesar, the team leader. The dark-haired one is Noga, the one with the crazy flames is Hatler, and the girl is Mira. Mira is a member of another group called Green Wind. She is assisting them on this mission. Eve introduces herself to everyone and is delighted to meet them. They all start laughing when they see how kind she seems. They head to the camp and ask if she can walk there, and Eve responds that she can do it all. Sifa asks what she was doing on the mountain. She says she left her village to go toward Ortoa, but she began to be pursued by ogres. Sifa and Noga are surprised to see that she is traveling alone from so far away, even being so small. They say they come from Ortoa, and since it is a very dangerous zone, they propose that she go with them to stay safe. Eve accepts with pleasure, as it will be a great help. Upon reaching a cliff, they point out the location of their camp, mentioning that there are other groups of adventurers besides them. As they advance, Eve notices Seal and rejoices that he is still alive, but she worries that if they see him, they will also try to hunt him. She signals for him to hide. Though it looks like she is trying to do the Dragon Ball fusion dance, Seal gets the message and moves away from the area, and Eve hopes he understood her. Hatler tells her not to fall behind, and Eve runs after them. Arriving at the camp, they inform her that many adventurers from various places have arrived at this point. Since it is quite large, it is surrounded by monster repellent, so she can be at ease as they won't be attacked. They reach their tent, and the leader says she can use the spot next to it. Mira says goodbye, and the others leave to discuss the next hunt. Sifar warns that if she needs anything, she can ask Hatler, though he is a bit unmotivated. Eve looks at him, and he explains it is because today he has to cook, and he is not very good at it. He tries hard, but everyone criticizes him because his food has a horrible taste and smell. It reached the point where he is afraid of having to cook. Eve asks what kind of dishes he prepares. He responds that he has the 3-star flaming attack skill, so he is very good at controlling fire, but he always cooks only with salt and pepper. Eve laughs nervously, and Hatler asks her to help him prepare dinner. She is delighted to be able to help. She explains that the first step is to season the meat. Then it needs to be fried in small pieces, and shortly after, the chopped vegetables must be cooked while adding herbs to give the food an aroma, along with some spicy herbs. While cooking, Hatler is impressed with Eve's culinary skills. A little later, the food is served, and she hopes everyone likes it. They are enthusiastic upon seeing the appearance of the food and give thanks for it. As they eat, they make gestures of happiness. Eve worries thinking they didn't like it, but it is exactly the opposite. They are fascinated with the meal. They wonder how it can smell and taste so good. Eve explains that if they cook with herbs that smell good, the bad odor disappears, while she wonders if the people there do not know what spices are. While they are eating, Mira arrives and comments that it is very strange for the fire swords to be eating a decent meal. Hatler invites her to taste Eve's food, and seeing it, she runs to try it. And as she eats, she is enchanted. Even Nogart chokes because he is eating so fast. Ivy is happy that they enjoyed it, and the leader confesses they were worried because it was Hatler's turn to cook. But thanks to her, they are enjoying a banquet. Afterward, they scold Hatler for making Ivy prepare everything. But Ivy intervenes and says they did it all together. Hatler was in charge of controlling the fire, which is why it turned out so tasty. He responds that it's true and gives a wonderful demonstration of his manipulation, attacking the sky and creating a sort of fireworks display. Her other self mentions that fireworks are a rehearsal of flames and metallic elements, and Mira asks if something is going on in her head. But she responds it's nothing. She was just thinking that if there were other metals, they could make even more beautiful flames. Mira gives her some metals from broken weapons and equipment, such as copper, iron, lead, and some ornamental stones, and asks what she intends to do. Ivy then demonstrates that with some stones, rabbit bone, and salt, she can make something very beautiful. She hands it to the firehead and asks him to launch it into the sky and burn it as he did before. Upon doing so, he is marveled by the spectacle in the sky. Hatler starts launching one after another, and all the adventurers in the camp observe the fireworks as if it were New Year's Eve, just like Seal, who is up on the mountain watching everything from a distance. When they finish eating, Ivy starts washing the dishes and asks Hatler to leave the rest for her to wash. But Caesar says no, as she has already done a lot and it's better for her to go rest, saying to leave the rest to them. Ivy refuses and asks to let her help too, since they gave her food and saved her from the ogres, so she insists. The leader, seeing her so determined, responds that they should clean everything together, while Hatler is moved by how kind she is. He can't help but hug her and ask for a little brother just like Ivy. Meanwhile, Sifar and Nogat run to give him a beating because he is crossing the line. A little later in her tent, she apologizes to Sora and gives him some potions from before. He is very sleepy, but when he sees them, he gets excited. Ivy is combing her hair while Sora digests the potions as he sleeps. This is a perfect example of his extreme lack of will. She then mentions that at first, she was very scared to see the adventurers, but she was lucky they were such good people. They, on the other hand, feel very sad for Ivy because she is so small and has been traveling alone until now. An important detail is that I am calling Ivy she, but in the story, they think she is actually a young boy, since as I mentioned before, she cut her hair and is in disguise, so everyone thinks she is a little boy. Continuing, they say it doesn't look like she is eating very well since she is so thin. Furthermore, she was very anxious when they told her to rest and ended up very happy when they allowed her to help. They say it's as if she acts thinking that if she isn't useful, they will abandon her, when in reality they feel they are doing much less than Ivy, and everyone is quite worried about her. Hatler is one of the most concerned, as he sees her like a sister. The next day, Ivy goes to the camp's trash dump and gets many old potions. At that moment, she observes some slimes and imagines they must belong to some tamers. They find her and ask if she intends to discard some trash while ordering their slimes to clean everything up. Little do they know that this trash is a treasure to Ivy. Mira reports that her slimes are uncommon and can digest even swords, and tamers with uncommon slimes have a very high position in the ranking, which is why she knows many people. Ivy is a bit curious about what she just said regarding the slimes and ends up asking if she has ever seen a weak slime. Mira responds that she has never seen one and reveals that slimes are extremely rare creatures and people would pay a fortune to capture one alive. At this, Ivy feels a deep terror and senses an unpleasant presence, the one that pursued her before. Mira asks if something is bothering her, but just as Ivy is about to respond, Hatler interrupts her by throwing the trash out. Mira is surprised because there is a lot of damaged equipment. Although this is due to the ogre's sense of smell being very resistant, they ask Mira to please get rid of all the trash. Additionally, they warn the other adventurers that it is time to return to Ortoa since they have eliminated all the ogres. Ivy is very moved to hear this. But in reality, her journey is going to be more dangerous than she imagined. That night, she prepares a feast to celebrate with everyone, and they are increasingly fascinated by the cooking tricks she knows. She prepares a soup and warns them that it is very hot, though Hatler, in his desperation, ends up burning himself. The skewers she makes are divine, but Eve is very worried because they defeated all the monsters in the area, and she hasn't heard anything more from Seal. However, her other voice tells her that they would have said something if they had faced a Wanda Dara. So since they haven't said anything so far, the creature is likely fine. The guys ask Eve to stop cooking and go eat something, although she responds that she already ate plenty while she was cooking. The girl is clever. At that moment, Mira arrives and congratulates the group for doing an excellent job, though Safar responds that the Green Wind group also did very well on this mission. At that moment, Mira's companions tell her that she still has much to learn, and Eve is surprised to see that the two are identical. Mira remembers she hasn't introduced them yet and says they are her brothers, Thor and Marn. Obviously, they are twins. Eve introduces herself, and Hatler informs her that they are part of the Green Wind group. The twins say she told them the girl was a very clever person, though Eve says that isn't true, but both say this humility proves the opposite. They invite her to join their group when she grows up, but Hatler stops them because Eve is going to be his little brother. Safar asks them to behave, and the twins notice another group approaching, say their goodbyes, and depart quickly. The other group is the King of the Throne and asks the Fire Swords if they have anything to drink. Hatler tells Eve that this is why Green Wind ran off, as the two brothers do not appreciate Captain Baroba. The captain then asks if this is the famous Eve they talk so much about and asks the guys to accompany him to Ortoa. They were already planning to take her there, and a little later, Eve is in her tent giving a large amount of potions to Sora. Taking advantage of the fact that there are many adventurers there, a lot of trash is left over, which is very good for our dear slime. Sora is very happy and ends up making noise, so Eve asks him to be quiet. After the banquet, Eve feels the unpleasant presence again and orders Sora to hide. She fears what might happen, but suddenly the presence disappears and Hatler asks if she is still awake. Eve calms down seeing it is him, and he asks if she will help them prepare breakfast the next day. She says yes, and obviously, Hatler leaves excitedly to tell the gang. Meanwhile, Eve observes the tents around her with great concern. She wonders what that presence could be and isn't sure if it was Hatler's, as it appeared just after though Sora tries to say something and Eve cannot understand. She thinks that if she were a tamer with stars like Mira, maybe she could, but at that moment, she realizes that Sora is acting the same way as when they were near the smuggler and the murderers. She asks what Sora thinks of the Fire Sword group, and Sora ends up jumping happily. But when asking about Mira, Sora acts as he did before, which means Mira is not quite what she seems. Sometime later, they arrive in the city of Ortoa, and at the entrance, they ask them to fill out a form with their name, place of origin, and destination. Eve asks if it is mandatory to write the place of origin, and the guard asks if there is a problem with that. Hatler realizes he doesn't know where she comes from either. They ask her, and she says she comes from Latam. They are surprised, and the guard understands why she wouldn't want to write her place of origin. He asks if she is covered by someone, and she mentions Captain Ogudo's name. He simply cannot believe she managed to get his support. They then ask if she has a way to prove it, and Eve shows her bank card. Upon passing it through the plate, they verify that everything is in order. If Ogudo gave his endorsement, it is not necessary for her to write it. She only needs to write her name and destination. Eve fills out the form, and they hand her the authorization, warning that she needs it to enter and leave Ortoa. Upon entering, she is surprised to see how immense the city is, and Hatler offers to show her around. But first, they need to find a place to rest, so they all go to the Adventurers Square, where they observe that the King of the Thrones group is setting up their tents. They ask them if they aren't going back to their homes, and the bald captain says they have a matter to attend to. He tells Eve that they need to talk about something, and at dusk, they inform her that the forest and the city are in danger. He isn't referring specifically to monsters, but to humans. The bald captain reveals that Ortoa is facing a serious problem, as there is a criminal organization that kidnaps and sells people. The guard located their hideout and attacked it, but the information leaked, and they found the hideout empty. Caesar is very upset because they are kidnapping people, yet no one saw anything suspicious. A worried Ivy asks if this organization is pursuing her. The captain confesses that this organization targets children, and that a child traveling alone is the perfect prey, which is why they decided to stay by her side. They apologize for scaring her and promise that now that they've arrived, they will stay with her and dismantle the organization. Until then, it's best if she doesn't remain alone. She cannot be unarmed inside the city. The guards are pursuing this group, but the problem is they leave no tracks. If only they had a clue, they could follow them until they found them. But they have nothing. Ivy then confesses that they tried to attack her and almost succeeded. To be exact, she was pursued. A worried Hatler asks if they did something. But before she continues speaking, the blonde adventurer uses a device to prevent them from being overheard. This is a magic device that monsters often drop, and buying one is extremely expensive. He mustn't waste its charge. So Ivy tells them everything that happened shortly before meeting them. She felt a malevolent presence pursuing her in the forest, but it disappeared when the monster appeared. Sifar observes that Ivy demonstrates great sensitivity to the presence of others, but she notes this is because she lived for a long time alone in the forest. Hatler tells Ivy that this is incredible, but they quickly tell him to shut up so they can continue listening to her. She recounts that back at the camp's trash dump, she felt it again, and the same thing happened at the night camp. But later, when she was in her tent, the presence vanished, and Hatler was outside. An irritated Sifar asks if he is the culprit. But Ivy says no, he only came to ask for help with breakfast. Sifar tells him his presence is unpleasant, but asks to drop the subject. More seriously, he mentions that perhaps the presence fled when Hatler appeared, which represents a major problem because it means someone from the organization is infiltrated within the punitive force. Everyone begins to worry and suspect one another, but a nervous Ivy tells them that, even though she doesn't want to say it, she feels it might be Mira. Hatler tells her that Mira would never do such a thing, and Sifar asks if she can base that on anything. Ivy says yes, but becomes nervous, because if she tells them everything about Sora, she might be in danger since Mira told her they are super rare and the criminal from before also wanted to steal the slime. This is why she decides not to take the risk and asks them to forget everything. That night she talks to Sora. He tells her she can tell them everything without worrying, or at least, from the way he moves. She can deduce that, but Ivy feels afraid. She remembers Ruba told her she should look for people to trust, because in the end, everything hidden eventually comes to light. She needs allies to fight by her side, and secrets are catalysts for the loss of trust. That is why the next day, after leaving her tent, she observes that everyone is gathered. They ask her to join them, and once again they use the device, saying that their brothers are hiding something. After she told them her suspicions, they followed them and saw how they met secretly with the itinerant merchant. After parting ways, she joined them as if by chance, and when asked if she knew the merchant, they responded that he was lost and asking for directions. Furthermore, Mira used the same device while talking to the merchant. They wouldn't use such an expensive device just to show the way. Surely they must have a deal that provides them with even more money than the value of the device. However, there are no signs that Green Wind has any legitimate business. Later, they went to the commercial guild to investigate the merchant, but they discovered it was his first time in the city and they hadn't done any business with him. This is the most suspicious part, because a foreign merchant isn't buying or selling anything. Besides, what else would they talk about while wasting such a valuable object? Nevertheless, everything they say is theories and circumstantial evidence, although several pieces of evidence don't seem like a coincidence either. The man feels frustrated because Marn is one of his childhood friends. Moreover, he also saved his life, but unfortunately, this is the truth. They could lead them to the organization and make progress on the case, thanks to everything Eve told them, and they congratulate her for the excellent work she has done. However, Eve is shocked because they believed her, despite the fact that she hadn't told them exactly why she doubted Mira. Caesar tells her that she mentioned she had a basis for it, and for them, that is enough. She finds herself at a loss for words. Hattler mentions how she always makes good meals, and Eve responds that she simply wants to be appreciated. He replies that this was the reason he knew she wasn't lying to them. Moved by the trust they placed in her, Eve decides she has something to tell them. The men feel nervous as Eve reveals her skill as a tamer, explaining that the one who made her suspect Mira was a slime she tamed. The men cannot believe a slime managed to do that, but Eve responds that he is very special. She runs to get Sora and tells him he can come out. Everyone is surprised to see him, as they had never seen a transparent slime before. The purple-haired guy thinks he is very cute, so cute that he starts stroking the creature too much. Sora is not enjoying it at all, and the others pull the man away so he stops bothering him. They tell Eve to just ignore him, as this onion head acts this way because he loves adorable animals and tends to over-caress them to the point where the animals end up hating him. Shortly after, they imagine that Eve must be a great tamer, since the slime can detect enemies and people trying to harm them. The purple-haired guy tries to introduce himself with another name to see if Sora can also detect lies, saying his name is Heartlord of the Fire Sword. But Sora reacts negatively, and everyone is surprised. His companions tell him to stop being an idiot since he had already said his name earlier. But there is another option. Sora might have reacted that way simply because he hated the guy. This prompts another member to test it, introducing himself to Sora as Mercury. Sora quickly reacts negatively again, which confirms he can indeed detect lies, since his real name is Noga. He confesses that at night he secretly drank Sifar's wine. Sora reacts positively, implying that Noga drank all of Sifar's wine. Sifar realizes why there was less than expected and goes running to give him a scolding. The scene shifts to everyone discussing the betrayal of Green Wind and how the trafficking organization has been kidnapping children in Ortoa without stopping. Every time they follow tracks or find a lead, the criminals escape easily. Since there were traitors warning them of the guards' movements, it was even easier for them to stay ahead. However, thanks to Eve, they now know the traitors are Mira, Thor, and Marn. Once they detain them, things will become much easier. They are very grateful to Sora and Eve. However, they cannot help but feel sad, as Mira was their friend. Marn was Hattler's friend, and because of that, he wants to be the one to arrest him, as he feels betrayed. Eve, curious, asks when the kidnapping incidents began. They report that it all started about 10 years ago. Everyone thought it was due to monsters, but 7 years ago they discovered this organization through a victim who managed to escape and told them everything she had suffered. Eve suspects there are many more traitors than they think, because if they have been operating for so long, there is likely more than one spy team. This is probably true, and it connects several events that occurred, like the time their hideout was found and infiltrated, but they managed to flee before the guards could arrive. Additionally, some of their guards died, and considering very few people knew about that operation, and Green Wind only found out at the last moment, there must be many more traitors. It is also revealed that they trusted Green Wind because a noble recommended them after they solved one of his problems, endorsing them as superior adventurers. The strange thing is that they only completed one commission for him and did no further work. But they weren't the only ones. Fire Sword also did a job for him, as did the King of the Thrones, but it was only a one-time thing. Eve warns them that they were probably being evaluated to see if they could be recruited. This fits perfectly and enrages the men, especially since Eve, at 7 years old, realized this in very little time, while they had spent years investigating without reaching a conclusion. This irritates Eve, who tells them she is 9, not 7, but Hattler reminds her that when entering the city, she registered herself as being 8 years old, although Ivy mentions that she is already 9 years old. Since her birthday is occurring during these days, everyone has already gone to wish her a happy birthday. But they are going to wait to have a big party on another day, and Ivy seems not to care much about this, because she is very happy just to be congratulated, since before nobody remembered her birthday. After all, she had been alone for a long time in the forest, but the group says that she does not seem to be 9 years old, because she is very intelligent. Her cooking skills are definitely not those of someone from the cities. And returning to the theme of betrayal, we observe the concern, since if a traitor exists among them, it will represent a great danger, especially if he is from the nobility. In this way, all the adventurers will be running risks, making the situation quite complicated, and it is necessary to discuss the issue with Ivy to decide whom to trust. They then decide to talk to the guildmaster first to confirm his reliability. The next day, the four of them go to the Adventurers Guild and find him. The captain of the guard and the vice captain are also there, and they are confirmed as good people. They are using Sora as a supposed magical artifact of Ivy's, so as not to reveal his existence. But this leaves the guildmaster perplexed, and he asks what that thing is. Ivy explains that it detects whether the person is good or evil. If it does not react, it means that everyone in that room is an ally, but they must use it quickly, because there is only 1 week of use remaining. That is why the guildmaster then tells them to quickly set out in search of all the members of the organization, in addition to the captain asking them to analyze everyone from the guard to give him a little help. They respond that they were precisely going to perform that task and review all the adventurers, and the guildmaster says that he will use all his authority to gather them there. Now we see how everyone is gathered in the tent. They realize that one of the guards at the door is a traitor, since Sora reacts, and the supposed magical artifact does too. Ivy gives the warning. Although the captain and the vice captain become a little frustrated, since they trusted that guard a lot. But it seems it will be a very busy day, since the entire guard will arrive in the city to present themselves. Although this also makes the work much easier, and they think about making this organization fall. And after some time, at night, everyone is already very tired and disappointed, since out of the 157 members of the guard, 38 were traitors, which represents a very large number of spies within their territory. And because of all those traitors, they never captured them, because they knew everything they were going to do in every move. And at that moment the Count and Mr. Foronda enter the room. They came to see the progress of the team, or at least that is what the Count says, since Foronda affirms that he is only accompanying him. Furthermore, the Count and Faltoria ask who Ivy is. They tell them that she is just a child who was also attacked by the organization, and who is now under their care. The Count introduces himself, and at that moment Sora reacts. But when Mr. Foronda introduces himself, nothing happens. Then Ivy warns him at that moment so that he examines him with her supposed magical artifact. After that, when the Count and Mr. Foronda leave, one of them becomes sad and says that it is a shame because the Count was a hero to the city. The captain and the vice captain ask what is going on, and they respond that the Count is guilty. And they are surprised, since there is a traitor among the nobility, thus creating the worst possible scenario. The fact that Ivy pointed this out makes it even more evident. But the vice captain feels very frustrated and angry, because he always informed him and told him about all the events, and now everything makes sense to him. The operations failed because the Count extracted information from him. Either he is the boss, or he is someone very close to the boss of the organization. But Busick feels very frustrated and annoyed with himself, because he caused the death of his companions, although the guys tell him not to lament, because it is not his fault. The only ones responsible are the traitors who worked for that cursed organization, and after talking for a while, they reach the conclusion that the organization did not take all the evidence, but rather left some at the location, and could not take them later, due to the fact that not all the members of the guard are traitors, which gives them some hope. And Ivy suggests an idea. She says to take a look at the guard who was a traitor, since he was investigating a certain location, and it is likely that he said he found nothing. So they should investigate the location on their own, to see if there is anything hidden there. The guys ask Ivy if she really is 9 years old, since she is very intelligent, and the captain and the vice captain of the guard are surprised, because they thought she was actually 6 years old, and it is then that they go to the room, where it was searched by the traitor. They say to check the warehouse, since they will not find anything in that room, and when he moves away, they quickly check every corner of the room, drawers, tables, and paintings. Although even so they find nothing. But Ivy notices a worn-out book, and thanks to the number of movies that her other self had watched, she already knew what she had to do, and upon touching it, an entrance to a secret room appeared. Ivy ends up falling inside, and discovers some chests, which are filled with a large amount of gold and documents, realizing that this was why the organization could not move anything, since there was a very large amount of money in that room. But thanks to this, they not only possess proof, but also documents and agreements from the organization, which will serve as evidence to arrest them. But they must leave everything as it is, leave that place, because the organization has many spies in the surroundings, and if they find out about this, everyone will most likely flee the location. A short time later we see everyone gathered, talking about the delicacy of the situation. And everyone is very busy. Furthermore, the guildmaster, the commander, the captains, and the leaders need to meet in secret. Due to the large number of traitors who are around there, they cannot act openly, because they would be discovered and attacked. But thanks to Ivy and Sora, they have the necessary information to arrest the organization. Thus they warn Ivy that she cannot go out alone anywhere, since she is running serious danger. And if she needs anything, she only needs to request it, as they will be close to accompany her at any moment. Ivy only asks for a bucket to be able to wash her clothes, and the guys are very different. They basically have a magic laundry that fills the bucket automatically with magic, so that she can wash everything when necessary. Ratlua explains that many cannot use any type of magic, and that is why these objects exist. He does not have water magic, and that is why they gave him this bucket. And Ivy begins to take off her clothes to wash them. But then Ratlua asks if she is really a boy, and Ivy begins to cry, and confesses that in reality she is a little girl, and that although she could tell the truth, she decided not to do so. She ends up apologizing, and Ratlua responds that there is no reason for concern, and recommends that she continue keeping this secret, since it is very dangerous for a young lady to travel alone. But while they are talking, Mira ends up appearing, and invites Ivy to go to a shop to eat some sweets. Ivy is quite afraid and very nervous, but Ratlua quickly joins the invitation without asking, which irritates Mira quite a bit. Because she did not invite him at any moment, Ratlua tells her that it is better to go to the fluff restaurant. But Mira responds that she wants to take her to a place for sweets, although he continues insisting until Mira becomes quite irritated. But she warns that it will not be just the three of them. And at that moment the brothers Thor and Mars appear. And at that moment Ratlua becomes very serious, and one can feel an absurd atmosphere of tension in the place. Everyone remains still, although they reveal that in reality those two were concentrated on winning at rock paper scissors, and Ratlua ends up winning. So they are not going where Mira wanted to go. They are going to the fluff restaurant instead. Meanwhile Ivy is perplexed, wondering if it was really so important to see the rock paper scissors. Upon arriving at the restaurant, the merchant delivers the new product to them, and warns them to take their own time. Although Thor and Mars seem hungry, and the guys observe them surprised, and upon finishing they ask for much more. Mira says that the sweets are to be enjoyed slowly, and Ratlua says that he truly savors the small amount, and upon tasting a bite he feels in heaven, while Mira tells him that he also seems very disturbing. And it is then that Ratlua asks for what reason they invited them so out of the blue. At that moment they confess that Mira speaks wonders of Ivy, which is the reason why they felt curiosity and decided to go out together. Mira orders them to stop because they are going to scare her, while she observes that Sora continues to be very nervous, since they are very dangerous people. And Ivy is not just afraid, she is in pure terror. At that moment Ratlua is very serious, and tells them that if they mess with Ivy he will have no mercy on anyone. But the brothers say that they do not intend to fight against someone with a 3-star flame attack. Mars tells him that he only has 2 stars of defense, but Ratlua tells him that he has no defense and is practically naked, while Thor, with a dark expression, responds that he would like to test him to see who is the strongest. The girl says that they seem quite arrogant just because of the fact that they have an attack skill. But Thor says that she would not understand because she is only a simple tamer who is in charge of picking up trash, and it does not earn money by defeating strong monsters. But Ivy intervenes and says that she seems to be someone admirable. She is a 2-star tamer and her slimes are rare slimes capable of processing swords. She reveals how she travels alone and spends time in dumps, and if there is anything useful she collects it. And for that reason she knows that it may not have value to someone, but to another person it may mean a lot. Processing what is considered useless is very important, and Mira ends up being moved and thanking her for the words. Ratlua mentions that tamers are of great help, and that slimes can be good friends. But Thor in his arrogance says that even so it is much better to be strong and esteemed, or to possess a skill that generates good money. But since they do not have it, it is up to them to collect the leftover trash in order to survive. But at that moment Ivy observes that Mira is a little downcast, and after they separate Ratlua asks how it went. She responds that Sora had been rejecting Thor and Mars quite a lot the entire time, although Ratlua was not talking about that, but rather about the fluff sweets, since they are his favorites. Furthermore, he trusts the owner quite a bit, who used to be an adventurer, so nobody was crazy enough to do something in that place. It was for that reason that he proposed going there, because one does not know what they could be planning, and Ivy understands what he meant, since if they had gone to the restaurant they proposed, Perhaps they could have tampered with the food or done something worse. Ratlua had not even thought of that, and is surprised by Ivy's great capacity to think of everything. This girl is a prodigy. While she wonders if she knows all this thanks to her knowledge from her past life, and Ratlua mentions that now, with this meeting, they confirm that all the members of Green Wind are traitors, and it hurts them to know that their acquaintances are people of such bad character. Ratlua relates that when he was a child he could run freely through the whole city, and if he was a good boy, he received praise, and if he did mischief, they led to a reprimand and they shouted at him. Despite all that, it was very fun, and Ivy feels that she also appreciated that until she turned 5 years old, and all her unhappiness began. Unfortunately, all the children in Ottawa must be under constant supervision from now on, and the adults must prune the wings in an oppressed city, and she wishes to recover the freedom of her city. And at dusk, while they have dinner at the camp, Ratlua informs everyone what happened. Ivy then mentions to Sazelk that they invited her to eat sweets, but this is not much different, because they continue being a kidnapper organization, and probably their intention was to abduct Ivy. The young man feels indignant with the way they can act in broad daylight, and Sypha questions why they are so determined to kidnap Ivy. And although Ratlua responds that they simply desire money, Ivy is being protected by the Flaming Sword and by the King of the Throne, and this ends up complicating their plans quite a lot. And even if they manage to kidnap her, they would quickly suspect them, since the traitors have no idea that they have already been discovered. At that moment, her other voice mentions that it is a distraction, and the guys question Ivy about what she means. She explains that possibly the organization is using Green Wind as a distraction, and they do not care about drawing attention, because their plan could be to show that there are traitors, since that would make actions difficult and generate confusion in the chain of command. They would not know whom to truly trust, and the most important information can only be handled by the superiors. It is evident that all this planning becomes very difficult, and the organization wants the documents and the gold that are hidden there in the hideout, and they will do everything possible to immobilize them while they go into action. Macker mentions that the traitors are wanted throughout the kingdom. Although they pay, they will no longer be able to continue being adventurers. At that, her other voice mentions that a lizard detaches from its tail as soon as it needs to, and she explains that just like the tail, the pawns are disposable, and once they fulfill their role, they will eliminate them to silence them. Ratlua ends up worrying about Mira and wants to warn them, but Sazelk stops him, because they cannot find out that they know the truth, and Ivy proposes serving as bait, so that in this way Green Wind goes after her, and they will deliver the information to the false organization, and with that they will become more relaxed and possibly less protected, since they would believe in that and would try to recover the documents and the money, and in this way they can ambush them and thus capture them. They once again look at each other and question if she really is 9 years old. Although Sazelk is aware that she possesses an excellent plan, but he cannot accept it. Gola also disagrees, as they cannot allow her to be placed in danger. If they end up facing each other, it will be a widespread battle among the guards, the adventurers, and the traitors, and at that moment they will be prevented from acting, meaning they will not be able to protect her. But Ratlua offers to look after Ivy's safety at all times. He mentions that even if she did not serve as bait, she would remain in danger while the organization continues operating. Sypha mentions that it will be easier to protect her and capture them if they manage to delimit the moment of the attack, and they end up accepting Ivy's plan. But they will be at a disadvantage if they fight without knowing how many traitors exist. And if they are stabbed in the back, it is over. And if they report the traitors, the enemies will discover their plan, and it will end up failing. Her other voice then proposes using a sleeping gas when the special forces enter, although the young men have no idea what that is, so Ivy asks if there is any magical object capable of making the enemy sleep. Sazelk thinks of the dream sphere, and the detail is that the allies will also sleep. Although if everyone fell asleep there would be no victims and they will only have to ask for forgiveness later. Gola is delighted with the plan, but remains very undecided about carrying it out, because they are depending too much on Ivy. He considers that they should elaborate another plan with more time, although Ivy tells them that Sora alerted them about the traitors and the organization still does not know. For that reason, this is the perfect moment to attack. They must take the initiative and not waste their opportunity. And it is then that they end up accepting Ivy's plan, and they begin to refine the details and ask Ivy to help them with that, while she feels happy to be considered useful. In this way, the next day the guildmaster summons all the adventurers to ask a favor. He introduces them to Ivy and warns them that the Adventurers Guild will take charge of protecting them at all times. They will make everyone know that the city of Ottawa is a safe city, and for that reason they wish for her to become familiar with everyone. He orders that everyone introduce themselves one by one, and Ivy prepares herself to identify who the traitors infiltrated in the guild are. The first to introduce himself is a Darkui, and Sora reacts quickly in a negative way, and Ivy warns her superiors while they are surprised, since they have only just begun and have already come across a traitor. And this lasts for a long time. While at the old base of operations, Agroth asks Borolda if he is okay, because he sees him very restless, although he responds that it is only his imagination, but later reveals that he noticed that Gola was smiling. For a long time they have worried about the organization to the point of being exhausted. There were always victims, and they escaped at the last moment. All this exhaustion has been accumulating, and the same thing happens with Gola. Every time the organization was mentioned he seemed very dejected, but upon seeing Ivy smile, he feels that that child is going to change the direction of the winds, or that is his premonition. The other young man responds that he sees him as very optimistic, and at that moment the entire troop arrives, and they ask for Borolda to form a team of special forces, while for their part all the adventurers have already introduced themselves to Ivy. Then the guildmaster warns that he is going to name some people, and those people will be in charge of a very special and secret mission. Ivy thanks Sora for all his effort, and at that moment Mira approaches to greet her, mentioning that now she is someone very famous. She thanks her for having defended her in the sweet shop, and Ivy responds that she was only telling the truth, and Mira once again gives thanks. But at that moment the crazy brothers arrive. They mention that now that she is famous she will be at ease, since now they will always look after her when they see her. Ratlua mentions that nobody would dare to touch her, and asks the guys if it is not true. A nervous Mira responds that it is, and Ratlua proposes they eat some more sweets in another place, because now everything will be calmer and Ivy will be safe. The brothers propose the restaurant from before once again, while Mira is quite hesitant. On the other side we see Borolda asking what they refer to by something fun, but Sypha warns him that they cannot give details because the walls have ears. Borolda asks if they do not possess an acoustic isolator, but Sypha wishes to avoid using them, since that way they might think that they possess many secrets. And at that moment one of the subordinates warns that the vice captain gathered the lower guard, and he responds that they are going to form a group to eliminate some monsters. The guard asks if they will continue guarding that location, and he responds that they will only send some and a few others will stay, although Nogur recommends that he reconsider better, because that place is very important for the organization, and it is necessary to leave some guards at that location. But he recommends that they leave that specific guard, since he knows the place very well, and he will take charge of forming a group to look after the guardhouse. Borolda accepts. Soon after he orders Gabo to choose who will stay behind defending, while he and the rest go with the special forces. Sypha informs them that they have already initiated an operation which was planned previously. Borolda asks what they should do now, and Sypha ends up showing a dream sphere. He explains that they will make the enemies sleep when they arrive, and also the allies, since they do not have many more options. They then begin to prepare everything, and Noga hands over a bag with some artifacts, but upon seeing it he becomes worried, since this is used against monsters of the highest level, although whether it affects allies or not will depend on his dexterity. The special forces are already formed, and they warn the young men that Gabo chose a large number of traitors to remain in the hideout, while the allies are just a camouflage. The group of adventurers will follow from behind, composed of the group of infiltrated traitors. They do not intend to allow anyone to escape, and they will act when they are sufficiently far from the city. While Mira, Ivy, and Ratlua, and the other two brothers arrive at a Mamaroko restaurant. Ratlua mentions that he had not been to that place because he heard rumors saying that one bite causes dizziness due to the sweetness, and the two brothers comment that those sweets are a delight, and Mira proposes a competition to see who eats more sweets, while Ivy and Ratlua voluntarily enter a risky situation. Upon entering the restaurant, Mira recommends that Ivy try the danzo, since that is the sweetest dessert in the place, although Ivy has no idea what a danzo is, and honestly I don't either, but since she said it is incredibly sweet, I probably won't like it much. I like things with little sugar. But anyway, Ratlua knows very well what it is, and tells Ivy not to eat it because it is so sweet that she could faint. Mira tells her not to listen, and at that moment the waiter arrives and asks what they are going to order. The twins choose the danzo, and Ivy ends up choosing it too, and Mira chooses the same as Ratlua, and he is complaining because he does not want to eat something so dangerous. And honestly, Ivy was a bit foolish to order the danzo as well. Ratlua then asks the waiter to bring something else, but he recommends trying his danzos, since they are only very sweet at the beginning. Then they become very good. Sora is hidden and is very nervous, since the waiter is also a criminal. Ivy makes a signal to Ratlua, who thinks it is time to start with the operation. Mira confesses that for a long time she wished to invite them to Mamaroko, since only there do they serve delicacies. Ivy agrees, although Ratlua responds that he wishes to start with something lighter. But they respond that he has to be a man and eat the damn Danzo. Ratlua takes the opportunity to notify them that there is a secret mission for Green Wind, and it was entrusted by the guildmaster, but he alone will not be able to carry it out. And while Ratlua relates the operation, we observe that the waiter takes advantage of the distraction to put a sleeping potion in Ratlua's Danzo and Ivy's as well, while he reveals to Green Wind that the city will be desolate, and that he will need their help to protect it, because the special forces are going to the forest to face a group of ogres. Mira responds that the punitive force had already finished them off previously, but Ratlua says that it is a group that survived, and they are sending a group to eradicate them. And while they are in the forest, the city will be unprotected, and for that reason, he needs their help, because if the organization attacks the city, they will be in danger, since some of the guards who watch the hideout will also go, and the waiter ends up arriving with the Danzos, and after serving them, Ratlua gives the negative signal and asks for Green Wind to help them defend the city. The brothers respond that they can count on them, while the waiter leaves the shop and runs to inform the organization. Ivy whispers to Ratlua that the waiter ran out upon hearing the information, and with that the first phase is already complete, while Mira asks what they are whispering, but Ratlua responds that she should not be meddlesome, and in a much more serious manner. He demands that they tell him why they are working for the organization. Upon hearing this, they are surprised and try to pretend they know nothing. But it is then that Ratlua offers his Danzos for them to eat. And this is the parting gift, because in prison they will not have sweets. Seeing herself cornered, she asks the brothers to surrender and stop doing the horrible things they are doing. But they refuse because the money comes first. They say she is a traitor, although Ratlua calls them hypocrites, since they are the ones who are the traitors because people trusted them. It is then that the brothers prepare to attack him, and Ratlua orders them to sheathe their swords because he does not wish to fight. But they ignore him and attack him quickly. Ratlua ends up neutralizing Mars with ease and warns Thor that his defense is much better than his own, and taunts him to attack him. His skill is inferior to Ratlua's, and both begin to attack together, and he sets fire to one. But Mars uses his water magic to neutralize the flames. They do not intend to lose being 2 against 1. But as soon as they take the advantage, Mira intervenes, as her slimes begin to devour the brothers' swords, and Ratlua takes the opportunity to knock them out. While Ivy is in a panic, after everything calms down, Mira confesses that she was tired of practicing evil, and she apologizes to Ivy for having deceived her, and she forgives her, because if she had not helped at that moment, Ratlua probably would not be alive. The owner of the place arrives at the location and asks what is going on, and Ratlua asks for help to detain those two, since both served as bait for the organization. And at that moment the main unit should have already initiated the operation. On the other side, in the organization's old hideout, they initiate their plan to recover the money and the documents. One of the guards takes advantage of the distraction and guides 2 of his companions, revealing where the hidden room is. One of them goes after the count, while we observe 2 cowards hidden, mentioning that they must warn of the attack but do not know whom to trust. And at that moment the Count arrives at the hideout and meets with his criminals from before, showing them the hidden room and ordering that they remove all the money from its interior, taking advantage of the fact that the main forces are out of the city. But upon entering, he ends up falling into a trap and activating the dream spheres, and everyone begins to fall asleep one by one. While on the outskirts of the city, these 2 are very enthusiastic since they can finally finish off the organization. And all this thanks to the plan of a 9-year-old child. Sazulk mentions that they will finally take revenge on the organization. And all this thanks to Ivy. And they are going to take this opportunity to have fun with the enemies. In turn, they deliver an object that was in the bag, and he is surprised thinking it was a child's idea. But he responds that this idea was actually Sypha's, which ends up making him more at ease, because he cannot imagine a 9-year-old child with such a risky thought. At that moment they prepare themselves, and the organization's spies attack them from behind, although they were already ready for the attack, and they use that weird thing there to make them get caught in a net. Oguto then uses the weapon once more to capture the rest of the guard's spies, and the guys, realizing that the operation has already begun, start giving a beating to the members of the organization infiltrated in the guild. easily disposing of those useless ones and enjoying every moment while doing so. An adventurer ends up falling into a panic and asks them to stop so they do not mistreat him. Although he responds that he should calm down because he is only beginning the beating of the traitors. For his part, Gabo with doubts asks the commander why he is doing all that. And he responds so that he is not such a hypocrite. Because they deserve it, since they are traitors. They will not be able to escape from that net, because it is made precisely to capture large-scale monsters. And they do not need to bother trying to convince them, since only those who are trapped there are those who truly betrayed everyone and serve the organization. It is then that once more they are electrocuted. And they seem to be enjoying this quite a bit. Although some members of the guard intervene and warn that they made a mistake. Borolda is feeling pity, since after all it was difficult to arrest only the wrongdoers. It is really a shame, so they are going to have to be electrocuted together as well. At dusk they return to the city with all the members of the organization arrested. He has the spies from the guard and those from the guild. They thank Ivy because if it were not for her they would not have achieved all this. And at that moment the count orders that they release him because he is a member of the nobility, and they will not go unpunished for this. But at that moment Foronda intervenes and says that the one who will not go unpunished is him. The guildmaster told everything about the conspiracy, and they only needed to examine the hidden documents to expose all his crimes. He informs that he has already sent a messenger to the capital to report the occurrence, and that it will be better for them to cooperate with the investigation. And at that moment the citizens shout to burn them alive for everything they did. But Borolda runs to stop them, or otherwise it will be a widespread revolt. He asks them to decrease the intensity because they finally captured the group that was causing so many problems. There were many traitors, both in the guard and among the adventurers. He apologizes to everyone for this, but unfortunately they still cannot announce their names, because they do not have clarity regarding the crimes that each one committed. So he asks pleas for the masses to control themselves, and that they promise they will not touch the detainees until the official announcement. But they refuse because they wish to see them dead. But he reminds them that the criminals will become slaves, and that will be their punishment for the rest of their lives. But he knows, he says, how difficult it will be for the criminals and where they will end up. They will have to perform forced labor where they will suffer enormous torment, and they cannot simply choose to die. They will work day after day and their lives will become unbearable. But if they decide to end their suffering now, it will be very fast. And these people do not deserve to be released after only a small amount of pain. They must suffer for the crimes they committed, and he will make sure that they become slaves to continue suffering for the rest of their lives. And therefore once more he asks that they do not touch the criminals, and the citizens finally yield. And Ivy observes that the captain is someone very impressive, since he also wanted to prevent the citizens from committing a crime, and if it were not for him, they would have gone to attack the detainees. And if they happened to kill someone, the victims would transform into criminals. But he took charge of the situation. The guy is truly tough. He is also very impressive, and Ivy mentions that she wishes to be like the captain. But they respond that please she should not do that, since she is someone very young to embitter her life so soon. And they ask her not to say those things because she still has a very great future ahead of her. But the captain hears them and asks that they do not confuse Ivy. He thanks her for having made all this possible. And the value of the speech is that it only remains to close the case, and they will need her help for that. At night they meet with the traitors to obtain information about the organization. And in case they lie, they will be condemned for being allies of the organization. And Ivy is surprised because there are many. But Sora is very enthusiastic and is dying to begin. And after a long night, they finally manage to eliminate the organization. And all this thanks to Ivy. If it were not for her, this cursed organization would continue causing misfortunes in the city of Ottawa. Although Ivy mentions that they succeeded thanks to never having given up. In this the captain delivered the summary of the case and asks for her to verify it. Since Ivy went from a small abandoned girl to simply Sherlock Holmes, this here is absurd. On the list there are many names, and he explains that there are not only traitors in the city. They examined the guard's documents and found a total of 58 wanted criminals, in addition to 45 individuals with pending investigations, including nobles and members of royalty. Ivy is surprised since it was an enormous organization, and nobody expected that they would have to do this. But Ivy is very happy. It is an enormous organization and nobody expected it to be so large. While she observes the documents, she notes one sheet in particular, and the guys explain that this is the reward she is going to receive for her help. They are going to give her 10 gold plates and 100 radals for her help. The wanted criminals will pay her 5 gold plates and 50 radals, and in total it would be 150 radals per head. and for sure wherever Ivy goes, she accumulates an absurd amount of money. They are well paid, and the members of royalty can influence the king, and Ivy uses her mathematical system based on mice, which cause a great impact. She ends up discovering that according to her counts, she will have in her possession more or less 155 mice. The guys ask her to sign. While she does this, she thinks that with this amount, if she eats 3 times a day for 365 days, she would last 140 years peacefully. She is not sure if she will be able to live that long, and Ivy practically became rich out of nowhere. Being a private detective really is very well remunerated, you see. A time later, Ivy checks her traps, but unfortunately she has nothing. And sincerely, she did not even need to do this anymore since now she is rich. But she continues working. She questions herself why she catches nothing. And Sora warns that there is something, and upon turning around, she rejoices to see Seal again, whom she had not seen for a long time. He, seeing that her traps had caught nothing, gave her a little help. After scaring the animals, many of them fall into Ivy's traps. She feels very grateful, and upon returning to the city, she sells the meat to the butcher. And he is very excited because thanks to Ivy he is making a lot of money. Since her meat is of high quality and is always transported very fresh, he gives her 100 radals per catch and mentions that all this meat will return to her on that day. Ivy cannot understand, and it is then that we see what the butcher was referring to. Because at night everyone celebrates for having dismantled the organization. The guildmaster encourages them to eat as much as they want, and the guys waste no time. They feast, and they try to fatten up Ivy as well, offering trays full of food. She even shouts that she cannot eat so much, and Ratlua reprimands them for giving so much food to her. But the group says that in reality it is he who is always offering. The leader congratulates her for her excellent work, and informs her that the count finally confessed everything, and with those pieces of evidence found, everything will be sufficient to incriminate them. And in the refuge they found even more decisive evidence, and all this has finally ended, or at least for them, since the count, when he was captured, and saw that he lost, he revealed all the nobles involved, and even mentioned an organization from the capital. The knights set out to investigate, and now in the capital, they will be busy for quite a long time. Ivy asks them what will happen with Green Wind, since she is worried about Mira. The guildmaster reveals that the organization planned to get rid of them. Since she is worried about Mira, the master from the capital did not plan to get rid of them, since they were of a lower hierarchy, and were not aware of many operations. They did not commit such a serious crime. And Mira is being valued because she stopped her brothers by betraying the organization. While she is in her cell, she rejoices for not having accumulated more crimes. The young man then mentions that the master from the capital thanks her that her information allowed the dismantling of the organization, but at the same time speaks ill of her, because through her fault, he will be very busy, and the information from the capital must be even worse. And Ratlua mentions that they suffered a lot through all these procedures, but the commander responds that without suffering, they would not have managed to arrest the organization. And the guildmaster once again thanks Ivy and her friend, and she is surprised, and Sypha apologizes to her, and confesses that they did not manage to deceive the guildmaster. And he also knows about Sora. The Lord explains that he interrogated him about the supposed magical object, and upon reviewing the records of the objects, he found nothing similar to that. And this seemed very suspicious to him, and he had to reveal about Sora to be able to arrest the traitors. Ivy apologizes to the master for having deceived him, but he responds that it is not necessary. He understands perfectly that she had to hide Sora. It was he who betrayed her trust, despite all her help. He laments for that, but Ivy responds for him not to worry. The guildmaster asks if he can meet Sora, and Ivy asks Sora if he wants to do that. He responds yes, and Ivy then introduces him to the guildmaster. They are surprised because they had never seen a transparent slime, and much less one with the capacity to detect lies. They then thank the little slime for returning freedom to the city of Ottawa, and they ask Ivy if she would not like to live around there. They think about preparing a house for her with everything she needs, and in this way she will be able to live happy and peaceful. Ivy is very moved, and she observes everyone and feels very happy, remembering the words of Luba. So she gathers courage and decided. She finally tells everyone who she really is. She then reveals that she has no stars, and her skill is Tamer. She relates that at 5 years old they analyzed her skill in the church, and upon seeing that she possesses no stars, they said that God had abandoned her. Her life changed completely, and her parents and all the people around her became her enemies. and the only person who helped her was the village elder, Luba. At 8 years old, they said that the Starless One would bring misfortune to her village, and they tried to kill her, which is the reason why she ended up fleeing. And after revealing the whole truth, they are very serious, and Ratlua speaks crying that she was very brave. They feel very sad upon discovering everything she suffered, but now she will suffer no more, because everyone is there for her. Ivy is in tears, and the guildmaster says that she no longer needs to suffer for her stars, and if she does not wish for anyone to know, he swears that no one present will reveal it. Ivy thanks them for all the support, and informs them that from now on, she will proceed with her journey. Everyone is surprised by her decision, but Ivy responds that until that moment, she traveled fleeing. She always thought that they would kill her if they discovered that she had no stars, but she met Captain Ogudo and the Vice Captain Verivera at the tower. They perceived that she was hiding something, but despite everything, they helped without asking any questions. Even the captain was her guarantor, and everyone helped her when she was being pursued, and they listened to her reckless plan. The elder recommended that she see the world, and now, she believes she finally understood, because she changed thanks to all of them, and she no longer thinks about fleeing. She no longer cares that she is starless. She will no longer travel running away, but rather searching, looking for what she wishes to do. She still possesses nothing of her own, but she is going to learn to do something, and everyone supports her decision, and they are very happy for her. Ratlua laments even more the fact that Sora has to leave, but it is time for the party to continue, and everyone continues celebrating and enjoying the celebration a little later. While everyone is having fun, Ivy tells Sora that she is very happy, and the next day she continues her journey, and all of her friends go to say goodbye to her. Ratlua overwhelms her with his overprotection. It is necessary to tell him that it is already enough, as Ivy is more responsible than he is. She informs them that she is taking everything that is necessary, thanks to the magic bags that were given to her, and her luggage is weighing much less. Borolda tells her that official bags considerably reduce the weight, besides stopping time, making it so that the food does not spoil, which is very useful for her hunts. They tell her that she can take them with peace of mind, and the captain is investigating a bit about slimes, but there is not much information about them. They are so weak that the power of a 1-star tamer ends up killing them. They say around there that the starless are the weakest in all aspects, and it may be because of that only she was capable of taming Sora. If she had not done so, he would have died just the same. Her other self mentions that Sora was destined to meet her, and Ivy feels that she was also destined for this. And before leaving, everyone warns that she is free to return whenever she wants, or at least she must go visit them, as she can consider that city her new home. Ivy gives thanks, and they say their goodbyes, and after walking a certain distance, Seal approaches Ivy. They are alarmed to see an Anandara, and wonder if she also tamed him. Sypha mentions that Ivy may have more power than anyone with stars, and her other self mentions that it is sad to separate from them, and that Ivy will miss them very much. But now she has her faithful companions to accompany her on her long journey, and now she has incredible friends. And after some time we see how many slimes are born, and among them all is a fragile slime, who feels a fear upon seeing how many others die so easily. He feels happy to see one more in front of him, but he also ends up dying, and it is then that a gust of wind moves him away from the forest, and we discover that in reality, this is none other than Sora himself, at the moment of his birth, and it is then that we see how he met Ivy, and thus ends this anime. This right here is a very pleasant slice of life to watch and peaceful, and I hope that you all liked it. Leave a like and comment down below. If you had a slime, what color would you like? That is it guys, we are together, stay with God, thanks, bye, and until the next video.